Subscribe to the newspaper. After waiting in line at the subscription window of the post office for half a day, Leon finally squeezed to the front of the counter. He handed over the pre-written list of newspapers and magazines to the clerk and spoke rapidly. "Renew all of these, top off for 2 weeks. I want double issues of all newspapers, both entertainment and political business quality editions. The magazines should be platinum versions with special editions and supplements." "All right, I'll handle that for you right away." Taking the newspaper subscription form filled out by Leon, and glancing at the long list of newspaper and magazine names, the previously exhausted clerk, who had been somewhat indifferent in his service, suddenly beamed like a freshly bloomed trumpet flower. After clicking the counter's dials for a while according to the newspaper names on the subscription form, the clerk smiled broadly and said, "Sir, the total cost for renewing these newspapers and magazines is 7 silver wheels and 9 copper wheels. Do you happen to have our post office's stamp card? If you're a long-standing customer with us, based on the volume of your subscription, you won't need to queue up at the gift area for stamping. I can directly stamp the new card for you here. Thank you for your help." Hearing the clerk's words, Leon couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. He then took out a stack of stamp cards he found in the director's drawer and handed them over to the clerk through the side slot of the window. The so-called stamp cards were essentially covert rebates offered by various post offices and newspaper agencies to retain loyal customers. Upon subscribing to a type of newspaper for the first time at the post office, you could receive a corresponding thin iron card. After that, each time you renewed your subscription for a type of newspaper at the post office, you could use a machine to stamp the card. When the subscription time was long enough and enough stamps were accumulated, the post office and newspaper agency would give out corresponding gifts and renewal discount vouchers, or invite participation in annual viewing, like-minded reading clubs, and other special events, considered as exclusive benefits for major customers. Under the dissatisfied gazes of the people lined up, the clerk behind the counter, licking big customers furiously, even neglected his basic duties. He pulled out a stamp machine from under the desk and placed each of Leon's stamp cards on it, stamping them one by one with a hum. Shortly after, having finished stamping all the cards, the clerk, without even wiping his sweat, returned the stamp cards with a smile and thoughtfully reminded, "Sir, the stamps for your subscriptions to Wine Traveler, the Sun News Public Edition, Quality Edition, and Charming Focus are already complete. You can head directly to the gift area to collect your gifts. I just checked for you. The gift for Wine Traveler is a small bottle of selected Chardonnay dry white wine. The gift for Charming Focus is a charm card from Maiku Lingerie, which allows you to try new lingerie in advance and offers a 30% discount on purchases. As for the Sun News Double Editions, the gift is a temporary access pass, which you can use to visit reporters and editors of interest at the newspaper office opposite to ask about secret news not printed due to space or policy issues. Thank you." Taking the stamp cards back from the clerk, Leon, having finally completed the task, couldn't help but relax slightly. Following the clerk's guidance, he went to the gift area and collected the 3 stamped gifts. Naturally, the small bottle of wine and the lingerie discount card were to be brought back to the director. If his guess was correct, she must have been eyeing these for a long time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have specially asked him to subscribe to the newspaper for her despite being busy at the headquarters meeting. However, this access pass, looking at the access pass in his hand, adorned with a golden gear-shaped sun emblem, Leon hesitated momentarily at the street side before deciding not to board a public carriage. Instead, he walked towards the Sun News newspaper office across the street. As for newspapers, Leon had never had the money to subscribe to them nor much interest in them in the past. Even if he occasionally needed some news, he would read others' old newspapers, so naturally, he didn't have any particular journalist he wanted to visit. However, after rifling through the director's newspapers yesterday and discovering her clipping embarrassing photos of him, Leon found a name in those articles about him that piqued his interest: Nicole Collins. If he remembered correctly, the name of the person who was the only anomalous object holder not present at the Rebels meeting was Nicole, and the old Owen couple, who treated little Baskin as their own child, had the last name Collins. So, Could it be possible that the journalist who wrote several incriminating articles about him was the 12th member of the rebels? Although he seriously doubted the roots of that Sun journalist, Leon's usual habit was to play it safe and wait until the director or senior Emma returned before taking action. However, since he had received a pass from the stamp card, giving him a legitimate investigation excuse, along with the dual protection of Yang Xian and the director's hair, scouting in advance shouldn't be an issue, right? Phew. Your undercover work these past few days almost suffocated us. After Leon took the black goat out of the small mirror and placed it into the shopping bag he carried, the black goat, who had not made a sound for a while, couldn't help but complain. Isn't the undercover mission over? Why do you still stuff us into that broken mirror? Can't you just carry us around like before? Let me tell you, that broken mirror is really suffocating. Other than a second-rate heart no one cares about, there's just a senseless puppy. There's not even a living creature to chat with us. It's so boring in there. All right, I'll try to carry you more. Although the black goat wasn't exactly a good buddy, as a past comrade who fought alongside Leon and helped him through the most dangerous rookie period, it held a certain position in Leon's heart. This small request certainly wasn't a reason to refuse. And receiving Leon's promise, knowing it wouldn't have to be stuffed back into the boring mirror world, the black goat immediately perked up. After chuckling a couple of times, it unexpectedly took the initiative to ask, Kid, let's get straight to the point. Whose soul do you want me to check this time? In the past, although the black goat cooperated, it always demanded things in return. It never talked this easily. Looks like it's been really suffocating these thoughtfully looking at the black goat, whose attitude had dramatically changed, Leon, while presenting his stamp card and access pass to the Sun News' gatekeeper, replied, It's a journalist named Nicole. I suspect she's the anomalous object holder of the rebels and plan to check her out. Follow the usual procedure. Once we find her, if she lies, just give me a heads up. Got it, leave it to us. Afraid that Leon might find it troublesome and stuff it back into the desolate mirror world, the black goat decided to demonstrate its value and actively began to scan the souls within a kilometer radius. After scanning the area and seemingly discovering something amiss, the black goat's expression changed dramatically, and it hurriedly urged, Quick, put us back. Just as the black goat suddenly reneged and demanded Leon retract it immediately, a female reporter wearing a wide-brimmed wool hat in the Sun News newsroom suddenly felt something, reached back to touch her own buttock, and a look of astonishment appeared in her dark, glossy eyes. Nicole? Even though her movements were large, the female reporter didn't make a sound. There wasn't even the rustle of clothing, so she went unnoticed. Only her colleague's sleeve brushed against her, noticing something was off, and they tilted their head to whisper a reminder. Be careful. The director is holding back, itching to yell at someone. Don't get yourself caught. But don't worry, he won't be his arrogant self for long. Nodding slightly at the kind-hearted warning of her colleague, she habitually pulled down her wool hat, tucked a wayward tuft of hair at her temple, then scrunched her nose at the supervisor who was frowning during his lecture, and then, turning her head, said with a playful grin, Old Martin has no standing in his family. He really can't support himself at home. Beaten dead by his 200-pound shrew of a wife, he can only take it out on us during meetings. So, getting scolded a few times now is nothing. Next month, when I become the head of the news department, I guarantee we won't have a single pointless meeting just for impotent old men to vent their frustration. Tickled by the female reporter's words, her colleague next to her bit down on their cheek catching her breath after stifling the laughter. The female colleague couldn't help but whisper a complaint. Nicole, don't get me in trouble. If I'd laughed, old Martin would probably point at my nose and scold me for an hour. Sorry. Offering an apology with no sincerity at all, the female reporter casually flipped her wrist, pulling out a theater ticket, and placed her genuine apology into her colleague's hand. Take this as my apology, okay? Is this a ticket to the Morning Star Troupe? And signed by Master Wild. allowing for a backstage handshake after the performance. Sneaking a look at the ticket in her palm, the female colleague was overjoyed but quickly became suspicious, skeptically looking at the smiling female reporter. Not okay. You're suddenly giving me such an expensive ticket. It must mean there's trouble you need help with, or you want me to cover for you. Correct. You're so smart. Winking playfully at her, the female reporter gently clasped her legs together. Her face bashfully flushed akin to having powder dusted on it, shyly saying, "Well, I stayed up late yesterday. This morning, afraid I couldn't hold up, I drank a few more cups of coffee, and old Martin's nonsense is unusually abundant today, repeating for over an hour and still not finished, so could you maybe?" Understood. She needed to relieve herself and required someone to cover for her, right? But today's the pitch meeting. When it's time to stand and present the story ideas, if Nicole isn't back, I'm afraid I'll have to take double the scolding for her. Double the scolding. A ticket signed by Master Wild. Ugh, it's worth it. Hesitating for a while gripping the ticket, the female colleague sighed, pocketing the ticket, before sliding her chair forward a bit to shield most of the female report. Come back quickly. You're the best, Maggie moi. Blowing a sincere kiss to her friend, the female reporter, having found her decoy, leaned her upper body slightly backward, using her colleague's body to block others' view. She then discreetly extended her booted foot, deftly nudging open the slightly ajar back door of the conference room. Screech! With a faint creak from the old door hinge, the female reporter, who had been sitting primly at the table just a moment ago, quietly slipped out of the conference room without anyone noticing her departure. Did she already leave? After slipping out of the meeting room and hastily making her way to the newspaper office's entrance, feeling the vanished presence, the female reporter knitted her brows and asked, with no one there to hear, "Didn't you just tell me you sensed another part of your information? Where did it go?" There was no response for a long while. When the female reporter's patience was nearly exhausted, a lazy-sounding voice finally sounded slowly. "It ran away. No kidding. I came over and didn't see anyone, of course. It ran away. The question is, where did it run to?" Grumbling with a slightly darkened expression, the female reporter irritably demanded, "Direction, location, features. Quick. Tell me whatever you know. Stop making me ask. Where did the other 7th of you go?" "I don't know. That damn lazy demon." Squandering a precious autograph ticket only to come up empty at the entrance, the female reporter stomped her foot in frustration but found she had no way of dealing with the part of the demon too lazy to make a sound. So she had to grit her teeth and start back toward the newspaper building. "Annoying demon, if I bother with you again, I'm a fool. By the way," just as the female reporter was swearing silently, an invisible furry goat tail floating behind her rear leisurely spoke, "There's someone from the Purification Bureau waiting in your office." Hearing the goat tail's reminder, the female reporter's eyebrows raised slightly. Then, completely ignoring her recent oath, she asked with a tense voice, "Who's waiting? How many people? Are they here to arrest me or what?" "Speak. Male 1, your fan." "Ah?" This gentleman collected 3 years' worth of double subscription stamps and received a pass to our newspaper, Mr. Lyon. After introducing Leon's identity, the cheerful guide gestured toward the female reporter wearing the wool hat, smiling as they continued, "This is reporter Nicole from the news department. Over the 6 years since joining the news department, she has written over 400 pieces of public news and more than 120 in-depth reports, immensely popular with our readers at the Sun News. Nicole's reports attract a large loyal readership, be it in the public edition or the quality edition. However, there aren't many readers like you who subscribe to both editions and continuously for a full 3 years. You two chat now. I won't disturb you further." Following a pointed introduction lifting both parties' status, the guide promptly exited the office without lingering. After the guide left, the two, both trying to guess the other's identity, stood in silence for a moment before the female reporter spoke first. "Mr. Lyon, I came this time to ask you a few questions." As Leon spoke, he pulled out the prepared newspapers from his shopping bag, laying them out on the table. Charles Department Store's big sale. One man hospitalized by large sum. Shocking. The Lane family slaughtered last night, and the murderer is this person. Duke can't beat cabbage? A comprehensive look at the Lane family crisis. Publicly slapping the prince. The Lane family's new Duke suspected of having mania. Beauty over power? Duke of Lionheart suspected of joining the royal family. I just want to ask, pointing at the newspapers on the table, Leon, watching his counterpart's expression, asked with palpable dissatisfaction. In just over a month, you've written about me 8 times, all in a negative light, so what exactly is it between us? When writing a report and sourcing material, do you have to fixate on just one person to milk? So it turns out they're here to pick a fight with me. After listening to Leon's aggressive questioning, the female journalist's previously tense back slightly relaxed. Asterisk great. Bring it on. As long as they're not here to arrest me. Asterisk. Mr.
Lyon.
No, the soon-to-be prince consort of the royal family, the Duke of Lionheart. It seems you have a slight misunderstanding about me. After calming herself a bit, the female journalist smiled and said, Firstly, I only wrote 7 reports about you, not 8. Secondly, imagine if you were the journalist for the Sun News and stumbled upon the news I found. Wouldn't you have written a few articles too? Asterisk, of course, I would. I probably write even more than you. Asterisk. Upon hearing the journalist's retort, Leon's face involuntarily turned slightly embarrassed, realizing that he had indeed been causing quite a stir, making it quite normal for a journalist to focus on him. Asterisk, but luckily that wasn't the main point. My true purpose wasn't to question the news reports, but rather to probe into the background of this suspect, Nicole the journalist, who might be a member of the rebels. Asterisk. Okay. I admit my recent activities have been indeed newsworthy topics. Well, hat, turtleneck, professional suit, small leather shoes, thick shawl. The clothing was covering almost everything, with nothing exposed except for the hands with light pink nail polish. Asterisk strange. The walls of the Sun News office have metal heat pipes installed, and it's not cold inside. Wearing so much seems a bit odd. Doesn't it? Asterisk. While carefully observing the female journalist in front of him, Leon rolled his eyes in feigned anger and said, But none of your articles ever said anything nice about me. Some even border on slander. You're exaggerating. The female journalist shook her head, likewise observing her opponent, as she smilingly reached out and tapped the newspaper on the table. Although in the eyes of many, the Sun News can only be considered an entertainment paper, even for political and business publication issues, most stories are mere speculation. Personally, I still value the authenticity of the reports. For example, in the reports about you, I refrained from making any definitive conclusions on uncertain situations, using terms like suspected, possibly, or according to the writer's guess. Don't you agree? Her hands were so white, with skin so smooth and tender they seemed almost translucent. Not responding to the journalist's question right away, he pretended to be looking at the newspaper text while actually glancing at her hand, squinting his eyes slightly. The skin quality seemed way too good. Although it was wintertime and the capital city's winter was cold and dry, and the wind outside the Sun News office was strong, her skin should have been slightly dry after just coming in from outside, no matter how good it was. Asterisk, this unusually radiant skin shouldn't appear on a day like today. Considering the identity of an anomalous object holder, her hand might have some special issues. Maybe later he could find an opportunity to shake hands and see if it's some sort of anomalous object. Asterisk. All right. I admit you have a point. Retracting his gaze from the newspaper, Leon's expression slightly softened as he pulled out an older newspaper from his shopping bag and placed it on the table. The sewage incident a deliberate act? Thomas Ryan. The evidence is fabricated. Miss Nicole, you wrote this report too, didn't you? Is this the incident where the Ryan family, together with 2 other aristocrats, intentionally poured sewage into public water pipes in an attempt to seize Charles Department Store? He remembered after writing this report, he handed over the evidence he had found directly to the royal family's Minister of Justice. So despite the Ryan family's strong denial, they were subjected to a rigorous investigation led by the princess, fined about 30,000 gold wheels, and forced to sell off the hydraulic company's operating rights at a low price. So, that was all just a ruse. The reason this new Duke of Lionheart was picking a fight was actually this report that caused the Ryan family considerable losses. Recognizing the newspaper Leon produced, the female journalist frowned and, looking at the new head of the Ryan family before her, nodded with a blank expression. Indeed, I did write it. Is there some question you have with this report? I do have some questions for you. While pondering where the black goat mentioned Yang Wei might be, Leon narrowed his eyes and said, "The main question concerns the evidence. Can you tell me where exactly your evidence came from?" Mr. Lion, if you've carefully read the report, then you should know that I clearly stated the source of the evidence right there. Feeling uncomfortable being scrutinized by Leon's excessively sharp gaze, the female journalist furrowed her brows and said, "When the Charles department store's money box collapsed and injured someone, I received news and rushed over for an interview. I found that piece of evidence right there in the shopping plaza. Whether you believe it or not, this is the truth." "I believe, of course I believe." Leon nodded and, with an equally expressionless face, said, "But did you ever consider why such important evidence would appear there without reason, and that you would just happen to find it? Could it have been deliberately placed there by someone? So, you suspect I took someone's money and deliberately exposed the Ryan family's dark secrets?" Vaguely understanding what this new Duke of Lionheart meant, the female journalist's demeanor turned unfriendly, crossing her legs and leaning against the chair back as she sarcastically chuckled. "Your Grace, firstly, regarding the data about the hydraulic company, do you truly know nothing at all? If you're unclear on such a critical matter, I suggest you do a self-check. At least according to my investigation, the punishment the kingdom imposed on your Ryan family could have been considered lenient. Moreover, if you believe my reporting of falsehoods led to your Ryan family's penalty, then you should probably file a complaint with the Sun News's Dispute Resolution Department, and then take it up with the news administration. Well, the complaints window is to the right as you exit. Take the stairs down." Raising her hand to gesture Leon towards the Dispute Resolution Department's location, the female journalist straightened up with a look that seemed frightened, batting her eyes as she said with mock fear, "Your Grace, even though the Ryan family is almost done for, they are still not someone a little journalist like me can afford to provoke. If you file a suit, I will definitely plead guilty and compensate you for defamation, with the maximum amount being 30 silver wheels, if I recall correctly. TSK. A whole 30 silver wheels. Just multiply that by 10,000, and it'd almost be enough for your Ryan family's fine, wouldn't it? This penalty is just too large, and I, the daring little journalist, have definitely learned my lesson. Please, could you spare me? Expert at fanning the flames, this person seems to be a master provocateur. Looking at the journalist, who was begging for mercy in words but actually provoking intensely, Leon stayed silent for a moment. Contrary to what she expected, he didn't explode in anger, but instead picked up a stack of old newspapers he had asked the guide for earlier. Under her puzzled gaze, Leon flipped to the article titled "Charles Department Store's Big Sale, a Man Hospitalized by Heavy Coin," and pointed to the backside buried under a pile of money, then turned his body back to her and asked, "Miss Nicole, does this figure look familiar to you?" Looking over at Leon's backside and the old coat matching the color in the photograph, the female journalist's eyes widened in surprise. That unfortunate guy nearly buried under the pile of money was actually you. It was indeed me, so, in fact, you've written 8 reports about me over this period. 7 were in the Sun News's political and business editions, with this one in the entertainment section. Plus, turning back, he looked at the surprised female journalist and slowly said, "The evidence you picked up was what I brought to the shopping plaza. Originally, I intended for Charles Department Store's owner to come forward with the sewage issue. But I ended up in the hospital unexpectedly, and the evidence was left behind in the plaza, eventually picked up by you who came for an interview. Seeing Leon in front of her, seemingly genuine, the female journalist was momentarily stunned before murmuring, "So, you came here to—" "I came to thank you." Grasping the unusually tender hand of the female journalist and shaking it vigorously, a radiant smile slowly spread across Leon's face. With extraordinary warmth, he fervently said, "Thank you. You really helped me a lot. So, you weren't here to pick a fight? You even came to thank me? Then just now," looking at Leon, who was shaking her hand vigorously, and recalling her own sarcastic provocation earlier, the female reporter's ears suddenly turned red as she felt a strong sense of shame. The person who successfully grabbed her hand didn't fare much better. After reading the intelligence provided by materialism, Leon's pupils instantly contracted. Name: untouchable hand. Flesh, energy, soul. Appearance: a delicate, white female hand that emits a faint white glow at night. It cannot be damaged by cutting, chopping, freezing, burning, voodoo curses, or mental willpower attacks. Ability: flesh untouchable, energy untouchable, soul untouchable. Cost: permanent loss of the user's original hands. File: the hands of a nun who devoted her life to the secret god. From birth, she was chosen as one of 99 secretors, with her features completely sealed and destroyed. Although she lived in this world, during her entire lifespan of 150 years, she never had any interactions with the world, besides touching with her hands, truly being a secretor that never existed. Near the end of her life, members of the secret church removed her hands intending to offer them to the secret god. But the Purification Bureau's Gemini Sub-Bureau arrived and killed all the believers in the secret church stronghold, sabotaging the sacrifice. After completing the cleansing task, the director of the Gemini Sub-Bureau found the nun, who didn't even have a name, amidst the bodies behind the altar, and gifted her with an anomalous seed. In exchange for the inability to ever touch anything, she was granted a day and night of restored senses and perceptions. After the nun died, the untouchable hand, born from her obsession, was stored in the Gemini Sub-Bureau's warehouse. Decades later, Gemini Sub-Bureau Level 1 cleaner Nicole Coleman, who lost her original hands during a mission, became the new user of the untouchable hand, continuing to this day. Evaluation: an anomalous object with terrifyingly low upper and lower limits. While it can resist all contact below the true God, it must be actively activated and used to block, meaning only those with terrifying physical fitness and reflexes can unleash its true power. Contamination value: 28.1. 28 contamination value. A level 1 cleaner from the Gemini Sub-Bureau. Seeing the prefix before Miss Nicole in the untouchable hand file, Leon's mind buzzed, and many things that hadn't made sense suddenly connected, clearing the fog clouding his mind. Indeed, with the Aquarius director's habit of keeping contingencies, it was impossible for him to leave the rebels unattended, allowing them to perish under the red-haired director's nose. He would certainly find a way to keep a fallback in case they slipped up, getting caught entirely by the Virgin Branch. The contingency he sent was probably the person in front of him, Miss Nicole. This female reporter was not a rebel member at all, much less the daughter of Old Owen and his wife, but a level 1 cleaner of the Gemini Sub-Bureau. Most likely, like himself, she used some anomalous object to infiltrate the rebels. Also, when the rebels held their meetings earlier and she was missing, most likely she went to eliminate Senior Emma's enemy, allowing Senior Emma to be taken by the Central Bureau. And the one who broke into the Purification Bureau, taking the fake photos yesterday, certainly was her. As for the evidence, observing the beads of sweat forming at the female reporter's brow and her overly thick clothing in a warm room, Leon's judgment was solidified further. If Miss Nicole were to remove her clothes now, her body would surely be covered in bandages. The reason for wrapping herself tightly was to cover the wounds made by the director's hair. Furthermore, her ears were reddening with embarrassment, yet there was no significant change in her face's color, possibly due to makeup or another anomalous object to conceal a pale complexion from blood loss. consistent with the thief's situation. Lastly, the black goat had once said its tail represented laziness and secrecy, implying an ability to erase traces from leaving the body, which matched exactly what the thief did yesterday. So, it was her. It was her. It was indeed her. What a find. Initially, he just came here recognizing a familiar name, hoping to uncover the secrets of the last rebel member. Yet he stumbled upon such a big fish. Sorry, I really didn't think of how to explain earlier, which probably led to a misunderstanding. After slightly calming his tumultuous emotions, Leon released the delicate hands with a contamination value of 28, swiftly switching to Elite Performer, and began to eagerly explain, "Actually, I didn't know about my connections with the Ryan family at first, and even now, though I'm forced to inherit the Duke's position, I wasn't planning to be a proper noble. Joining the royal family was just an excuse to get rid of my ducal identity." "I see." Seeing that Leon did not dwell on her earlier criticisms, the female reporter felt slightly relieved, nodded awkwardly, and said, "Then you truly are unique." Hehe. "No, even though I'm unique, you're even more special." Catching the female reporter's hands again and giving them a firm shake, Leon, while discreetly unbuttoning her wrist, spoke with a blend of 3/10 sincerity and 7/10 insincerity. "Miss Nicole, do you know how many newspapers and reporters I sought out to get this story out in the—" Before the female reporter could reply, having caught a glimpse of a bandage's corner inside her sleeve, Leon exclaimed with excitement, "9! I contacted exactly 9 newspapers in one day, running through almost all those big-name, bold newspapers in the capital city, and yet not one dared to publish the story. Some even tried to arrest me and directly seize the evidence. This was so incredibly dark. Damn Ryan family. I still get angry thinking about it." The female reporter, facing the scathing new Duke of Lionheart, who was condemning the Ryan family, slightly opened her mouth, seemingly wanting to say something but unsure how to proceed, so she simply kept her mouth shut and gave a vague nod. "Miss Nicole, I knew you would disapprove of such matters as well and would take action to expose them. If I had found you and the Sun News earlier, I wouldn't have had to go through so much hassle." Upon hearing the female reporter's agreement, Leon wasted no time in singing her praises, calling her the savior of the kingdom's media industry and the last conscience in the capital city's press circle. Leon, with 3 parts sincerity enhanced by the Elite Performer, made the compliments sound incredibly genuine, almost to the point of idle fanaticism, causing the female reporter to squirm and repeatedly wave her hands modestly. Stop, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Really not as great as you say. My reports, also have many shortcomings." "Haha, you're being modest. Though there are indeed some minor shortcomings." Leon, recalling something, nodded and smiled. "For example, in your news pieces about me, Miss Nicole, you were relying solely on hearsay, lacking first-hand information, so there were some slight inaccuracies. So, Miss Nicole, would you be interested in doing an exclusive interview with me?" "An exclusive interview?" "Yes, an exclusive interview." Leon smiled and said, "Though I've inherited the Duke's position, I still have a very unique role within a minor division of the police department. Would you be interested in interviewing me there? In a couple of days when you have time." Your invitation was downright stupid. After Leon's interview request was promptly rejected by the female reporter, he could only leave with a face full of regret. As he boarded the public carriage back to the Purification Bureau, the black goat couldn't wait to squeeze out from the carriage window. At first, he chattered a few words, then regretfully commented, "If you wanted to set a trap to catch her, you could have just invited her to your place for the interview, or to the Ryan family. Then, with both Senior Emma and the red-haired director aware of your plans, catching her would have been a piece of cake. But you went ahead and invited her to the Purification Bureau for an interview. That woman is with the rebels and under Aquarius, still badly injured and avoiding you all. How would she dare come to the Bureau to interview you? Let me tell you, when you made that invitation to the Bureau, the reporter's face turned pale with fear. Once you looked away, she was sneakily glancing at you full of suspicion. It's clear she's already starting to doubt you." After a long barrage of chatter, followed by a stupidly foolish overall assessment of Leon's proactive invitation. The black goat smacked his lips, not yet satisfied, and said, "Kid, now you realize how important I am, don't you? If I could have gotten out earlier to secretly remind you, you wouldn't have alerted her. Now that this has happened, setting a trap for her in the future will be difficult." "What a shame." Yeah, you're right about everything." Glancing sidelong at the black goat, Leon calmly replied while jotting down the recently acquired intelligence in his notebook. "Do you think it's possible that I actually didn't intend to catch her?" A live spy with an exposed identity is far more useful than a captured dead one," Leon replied without looking up as he continued writing notes. "If she still has contact with the Aquarius director, she could be used to send false intelligence. We might even be able to find Aquarius director through her. Isn't that more useful than capturing her?" "Suppose so." After mulling it over for a moment, the black goat nodded slightly but still protested. "Since you're not planning to capture her, wasn't it unnecessary to mention the Purification Bureau? You invited her there, and now she's suspicious you're setting a trap for her, making her more alert. It's a good thing she's become more alert." Thinking about the intelligence he had just seen, Leon's brow furrowed slightly as he set down his charcoal pencil heavily, feeling the pressure as he spoke. After all, she's a level 1 cleaner. According to the director, Senior Emma, as an elite level 1 cleaner, is capable of destroying most of the capital city in a day if no cost is spared. She could probably kill me in a flash. A character as dangerously powerful and whose abilities are unknown, like her, carries enormous risk. Jerry's friends can track her movements, but they can't stop her from causing destruction. I fear only the director could subdue her instantly. Knowing the director's situation, it's impossible for him to drop everything else and keep watch over her all day. So, the safest approach is to keep her alert and cautious without making her flee. All because she still has a sliver of luck in staying. In such a short time, you came up with all that? After hearing Leon's plan, the black goat smacked its lips, suddenly finding this kid somewhat unfamiliar. Having gradually grasped some power and been influenced by both Emma and the red-haired woman, Leon had notably changed. He was no longer the raging fool he once was. This sly dog was much more cunning now, scheming against others constantly. He was becoming more like those clever operators at the Purification Bureau, full of complex schemes. Even the ideas he excreted must be twisted as his mother's gnarled threads. "Fine." Harboring nothing but ill intent as he glanced at Leon's backside, the black goat curiously asked, "What are you planning to do next?" "Head straight back to the bureau to wait for Emma and that red-haired woman to return." "Next?" Pondering for a moment, Leon circled something in his notebook with the charcoal pencil he crafted himself, hesitantly saying, "I'll first return to the bureau to discuss the situation with Senior Jerry, then go find the princess to break off the engagement." The sun had set. With the fading sunlight, the embers and smoke that followed the war swept through like streaks of deep gray, painting patches of shadow across the streets and alleys. After several brutal battles, this once bustling city had been reduced to ruins. On its crumbling streets, broken mechanical parts lay scattered. In collapsed buildings, fractured steam pipes weakly spewed grayish-white noxious smoke. Dust, smoke, ashes, rust, blood, cries. A desolate yet searing wind howled through the streets and alleys, bringing with it the acrid, smoke-laden, scorched scent that hung in the air, tormenting the tearful eyes of the survivors. It was as if the city, devastated by war, was mourning its own death. This is, realizing the shattered city before her, a city she had been to only once, but knew all too well, had left Veronica, who now appeared 6 or 7 years younger, slightly stunned. She couldn't help but bite her lip hard. "This is my dream. The fractured city before me is the former county seat of Lane County, Cornwall City, which was utterly destroyed by war. During the Homeland Defense War 6 years ago, the kingdom and the mechanical troops from the Ice Plains nation Ash-Edo clashed 11 times in Cornwall City, flattening the once thriving metropolis. Even including those who had fled early, more than half of Cornwall City's residents were killed or injured. Before her lay the aftermath of the 6th siege, the day before the 7th round when Ashito was set to counterattack. In the following 2 hours, she would experience the most intense nightmare of her life. Despite the desperate resistance to move forward, the dreaming princess found herself unable to control her actions, compelled to follow her former self, accompanied by numerous guards and 10 combat medics, toward the dilapidated factory at the end of the street. It was a sugar refinery bombarded repeatedly. Cornwall's rainbow candy was once spread throughout the kingdom, resembling myriad hues in children's dreams. But after 6 sieges, this factory with sweet memories had half collapsed. Its bullet-riddled walls echoed with the remaining steam hissing in the pipes, surrounded by the shattered machinery's remnants. In stark contrast to the bleak scene, the floor was covered in vibrant syrup, and within the warehouse that once stored these syrups hid dozens of civilians who hadn't managed to evacuate, hoping for an unlikely rescue. The dreaming princess heard the weak cries for help, anxiously directing the guards to pry the door open, personally pushing aside the deformed door frame and rushing in first. The sunset's glow streamed through the broken windows, casting mottled shadows in the half-destroyed room. A child, smeared in filthy syrup, clutched their doll, timidly glancing over at her, surrounded by 30-some other survivors. Seeing her target for this trip, the dreaming princess sighed in relief, showing a gratified smile. Yet the waking princess, fully aware that she was dreaming, looked at the doll in the girl's hand, its face shattered, eternally smiling in lamentation, and bit her lip tightly. Boom! With a tearing screech, hundreds of bombs filled with alchemical fuel streaked their ghastly white tails through the dark red dusk, tearing apart the evening sky, falling upon Cornwall City's streets. The sugar refinery with its half-collapsed structure was obliterated, its vivid syrup turning into a raging orange blaze. No! Just before the vivid flames could fully ignite, the sleeping princess shot up from her bed, eyes wide open. Though she managed to escape the dream, shaking off this nightmare that's tormented her for 6 years before that agonizing moment arrived, her thin nightgown was drenched in cold sweat, clinging to her skin, making her shiver uncontrollably. Who? After catching her breath for a while, leaning wearily against the bedhead, the princess calmed her racing heart, not attempting to go back to sleep. Instead, she got out of bed, drank a glass of cold water that had long cooled, then sat at the desk, opening the documents pending approval, silently picking up a quill. The King of Nightmare's Curse. Every direct blood descendant of the royal family, once reaching adulthood, would be plagued by nightmares throughout their lives, endlessly reliving their deepest regrets and pain in incredibly vivid nightmares. Yet, in a way, it's for the best. After approving the document at hand, the princess looked back at the iron doll smiling on the shelf behind her, silently pausing before picking up another document. Asterisk, though the King of Nightmare's curse is painful, it continually reminds me. It forces me to never forget everything from the past and always remember what I must do. Asterisk. As the princess diligently worked, the pile of documents on her desk gradually diminished, while the oil paste in the lamp slowly vanished. When a slight crack sounded, the lamp's glow flickered slightly, and a soft call from the maid echoed from the door. "Your Highness? Are you still awake?" "Not yet." After trimming the lamp's wick to rekindle its dimming light, the princess continued approving document. "What is it?" "Princess Veronica, it's your dear, Mr. Leon has arrived. Do you want to see him now?" "Is this the princess's bedroom?" Led by the maid, Leon was brought into the bedroom of the princess. Although it was somewhat impolite, he couldn't help but take a look around to inspect the room's arrangement. Unlike a certain Prince Freckles' dazzling room, which was obviously expensive at first glance, the princess's bedroom was more like another office rather than a typical bedroom. A surprisingly large desk, coupled with a bookshelf crammed with various documents, occupied nearly 40% of the space. Beside the desk was a huge drawing board filled with dozens of memos and reminders written in ink. In the iron filing cabinet next to the drawing board, there was a pile of files with stamps and signatures, along with blank papers stacked half a person's height. It seemed like 2 bottles had accidentally been broken, staining a large part of the wool carpet black. This is a complete workaholic. Glancing at the wrinkled nightgown draped over the chair and the thick blanket on the bed that had clearly been slept in but not yet tidied up, Leon blinked. He felt like his image of the princess had slightly collapsed. In newspapers, Princess Veronica was dignified and mature, yet privately, she was actually somewhat sloppy. There were also several unwashed coffee cups on the table, and it looked like they had been sitting there for days, with the leftover coffee already congealing on the cups. Please don't misunderstand. Seeing Leon staring at the coffee cups on the table, the maid hurriedly explained on behalf of the princess. There are many important things in Princess Veronica's bedroom, so generally, we are not allowed to come in. Because it's not suitable for us to come and clean up, usually, the princess handles it herself. But this time, the sudden external visit left quite a bit of work accumulated. As soon as the princess returned, she was busy, so it looks a bit messy, but yes, an external visit. The princess's sudden disappearance these past few days had, after modifications by the brain of the evil god and the illusion can, aside from the directly involved princess and Joshua, who had been punched 3 times due to the princess's memory loss incident. No one knew what truly happened in these days. There was no turmoil nor any sign of it. It silently modified the memories of tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of people. This thing was truly terrifying. I see. Nodding towards the maid. Where is Princess Veronica? The princess went to the inner room to change her clothes. The maid answered, You indeed came a little late. The princess was wearing a nightgown, which is inconvenient for meeting guests, so. It's not that it's inconvenient for meeting guests, accompanied by slight footsteps. The door, besides, you must be joking. After the maid took the initiative to leave and close the door, noticing the glimpse of fair skin peeking from the princess's collar, Leon awkwardly turned his head slightly and then proactively said, Call me Veronica. After correcting Leon's address, the princess took his hand and led him to the balcony, sitting down on the sofa by the bed. She then smiled sweetly and said, So you're here to ask about the wedding date? Actually, I'm here to apologize. Instinctively scooting a bit away, distancing himself from the warm body emanating heat beside him, Leon took a deep breath. In the gentle scent of iris in the air, he said earnestly, Princess Veronica, during that time, I didn't have the memories I initially had, so I didn't know the reasons or consequences, but now I have remembered. I'm sorry. I wasn't sincere when I proposed to you. He briefly explained the relationship between himself and the Ryan family, as well as the whole story about wanting to get rid of the Duke of Lionheart's status by directly proposing to the princess, thus forcing the Ryan family to find someone else to be the Duke. With a sincere look, Leon said, Princess Veronica, you are indeed a remarkable woman, but this was merely a coincidence from beginning to end, and I also do not intend to start a family, so please reconsider about the engagement between us. All right. After carefully listening to Leon's words, the princess, being subtly rejected, was neither surprised nor angry. Instead, she smiled and nodded, then asked in return, I am willing to reconsider, but could you first not be in such a hurry to leave? Would you stay and consider it with me? The consideration I meant was to let this matter slide, not for you to really consider it. Looking at the princess who deliberately misunderstood his words, Leon opened his mouth hesitantly but couldn't find a reason to refuse and just nodded slightly. Very well. Since you agree, let's first consider why you would reject this marriage. As if not talking about her own marriage, Princess Veronica winked at Leon, smilingly saying, First of all, I am quite confident in my appearance and figure, so it's definitely not because I'm too ugly and not up to your aesthetic standards, right? Hearing Princess Veronica's words, Leon instinctively glanced at her. The princess's royal blue nightgown was elegantly tailored, and apart from a not-too-deep shallow V-neck at the collar, there wasn't any aggressive design. It was a conservatively enveloping nightgown that would not be out of place if worn outdoors. But, for some people, no matter how the clothing itself is, it has to give way to the somehow innate charm when worn by her. When slouching lazily against the back of the sofa, the originally classical and mild shallow V-neck of this gown was forcefully pushed up by the prominent curves. When sliding to the lower edge due to the snug fit, it created a rather striking disparity. Finally, when the material itself, being adequately soft, managed to experience the enormous contrast, gentling the curve onto her waistline, a luscious round full moon unreasonably leaped out. Although this full moon quickly sank into the soft sofa, not fully unveiling its true appearance, the rich and mature elegant lines exposed between the sofa's shielding still induced a stir, enough to make anyone's heart skip a beat involuntarily. You are indeed very beautiful, but such matters are complex and not just about Mr. Lyon. She softly called out to Leon, naturally interrupting his resistance. Princess Veronica, slightly scolding, said, "We are not arguing but seriously considering our future relationship. I accepted your suggestion to reconsider this, so please don't interrupt me. All right? Okay. Then let's continue." After regaining control of the dialogue, Princess Veronica gave a sly smile and then said, "Since you admitted my charm and are even attracted to me, do you resist our marriage because you find my personality annoying?" "No, but as long as you don't find me annoying, that's good." Seizing the conversation again, Princess Veronica said smilingly, "Since you don't look down on me, is it because of my status, or the troubles that marrying me might bring? Or do you sense an issue with why I accepted your proposal and think that I am not genuinely interested in you, but in the Ryan family behind you? These actually do have some." Hearing Princess Veronica mention these, Leon couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, then slightly nodded, admitting her assumption. Even ignoring my status as a transverser, the differences between me and Princess Veronica are unimaginably vast. The drastically different social classes and experiences leading to different understandings nearly doom us to have no common topics. Being close friends is challenging, let alone becoming partners. Moreover, aside from this, our respective job natures are completely unsuitable. As for the nature of her princess status, which implies endless trouble, seeing her relationship with Joshua, if I truly got involved in the royal family's internal strife, there'd certainly be endless vexing matters. Most importantly, her agreement to my proposal was entirely due to the value of the Ryan family and the support the position of Duke of Lionheart could bring her. It really has nothing to do with me as a person. All she desires is the Duke of Lionheart, not Leon Lane. If I were just an old nobility, she would indeed be an excellent partner, but since I neither want to seize power through my noble status nor want the original lives of Anna and the others to be completely disrupted, no matter how wonderful the princess seems, she is not the right person for me. I see. After scrutinizing Leon's eyes and vaguely guessing part of his thoughts, Princess Veronica pondered briefly and then nodded before saying, "I roughly understand why you don't want to marry me, and I understand your views. However, I have one last question." Looking into Leon's eyes, the princess sat up slowly and gently asked, "Since I am not your ideal wife, can you tell me what your ideal wife is like? What is my ideal wife?" Hearing the princess's question, Leon, who had never considered this question, was momentarily stunned but then began to ponder over it. First of all, she definitely needed to share a common language with him and be easy to communicate with. At the very least, their values couldn't differ too much. Otherwise, life would be filled with trivial conflicts, and he might as well stay single. Secondly, her looks and figure couldn't be too poor. After all, finding a wife wasn't the same as making friends. If they weren't attracted to each other at all, there was no point in discussing anything further. Lastly, she had to get along well with Anna and the others. The relationship with his sister-in-law had to be harmonious, she had to like children, and she also needed to accept his job at the Purification Bureau, being mentally prepared for a husband who might die at any time. "Mind if I summarize a bit for you?" After hearing Leon's words, the princess couldn't help but smile, then cheerfully summed it up. "You talked a lot, but you only have 3 conditions. Someone you can talk to, someone pleasing to the eye, and someone who can accept your family situation. Did I get that right?" It was true. Then it's simple. Seeing Leon nodding in agreement, the princess, who had spent years navigating the political circles and knew how to negotiate, smiled and said, "Even though I haven't interacted much with you, I'm very satisfied with your family conditions. I get along with Anna, and you can't deny my charm. So, even if I'm not the ideal one, I meet 2/3 of your conditions, right?" Unaware that the princess swapped the concept, turning 3 veto criteria into scoring items, Leon thought for a bit and nodded again without opposition. "If you don't oppose at this stage, you won't be able to escape." Seeing Leon already starting to follow her line of thought, the princess's lips curled slightly as she continued her strategic approach. "As for the ability to talk, I feel you have slightly biased thoughts on this." Hearing the princess's words, Leon couldn't help but curiously ask, "What do you mean?" "It's a bit too idealistic." Her well-proportioned and firm legs crossed at one side, sitting gracefully on the sofa. The princess gazed into Leon's eyes and seriously explained, "Between people, it's inherently impossible to talk perfectly. Even if people have very similar views, there will inevitably be disagreements over some details. Just like those who follow me, hoping to change the kingdom, even if everyone's goal is the same, they will have their own ideas and some completely different, even conflicting, demands." Using the princess's faction as an example, she shared her perspective. Afterward, seeing Leon seemingly in deep thought, Princess Veronica spoke gently. "Building a family is the same, Leon. You can't expect to find a wife who thinks exactly like you and never have arguments throughout your life. That possibility is really too low. Even if you truly find one, as you both encounter different people and things, your thoughts will slowly change, and it's impossible to stay completely aligned. Then what will you do?" "You will feel pain because of the constant conflicts, and you will also find it hard to completely let go due to the unwillingness to abandon all the experiences with her. So rather than facing all this in the future, find a smart-thinking partner from the beginning. Someone who, despite having differences with you, is willing to listen to your thoughts and knows how to reach a consensus with you. Am I right?" It seemed like something was off, but apparently, nothing was seriously wrong either. Following the princess's line of thought for a while but finding no obvious flaw, Leon couldn't help but nod in agreement. "Right? Such a pity. I'm clearly very fitting for your conditions, yet you still want to think it over." With a light faux angry complaint, the perfect candidate, who was both smart and sensible, pleasing to the eye, and could accept family situations, didn't rush to reel in her fishing line but instead slightly loosened her grip, letting Leon reflect while grinningly changing the topic. "Speaking of considering, Leon, besides me, do you have any other candidates? Could you tell me about them?" "Other candidates?" Hearing the princess's words, Leon's mind uncontrollably flashed several figures. The first one that popped into his head was a striking redhead. Stop. This one must be stopped early. Recalling the piles of empty bottles in the director's office and the times he almost drowned in wine vats during drinking sessions, Leon felt a chill run down his back and quickly squashed this dangerous thought. Excluding the director, which was no different from marrying a sea of wine, then it was Senior Emma, gentle, mature, good to him, fair-skinned and pretty, strong and capable, with a huge guillotine in the house. Thinking of that room full of blood-stained torture tools and the 2.5-meter-high hanging execution guillotine, Leon shuddered and sensibly abandoned this idea. Then, Isha? But the secret police work is incredibly busy, undoubtedly leading to more separation than togetherness, and she was also a master of kicking, even though her character was excellent and she was very loyal, making her a #1 friend. Yet, truly marrying her would mean a life of chaos, potentially breaking both the egg and the basket. No way. No way. The little rich girl, Amy? While she apparently had a bit of interest, he felt somewhat lacking on his side, and their current interaction wasn't much either, seemingly not too suitable as well. After considering it in his mind, Leon found himself somewhat speechless that among the opposite sex he interacted with frequently, excluding his sister Anna, the most suitable candidate for a partnership appeared to be the princess right in front of him. Regardless of anything else, with the princess's skills, keeping a peaceful household was at least guaranteed. and her acceptance of a possibly die-at-any-time husband was remarkably high. Furthermore, if anything actually happened to him, she could take good care of his siblings, so almost there. According to her previous investigation, if evaluated by those three standards, among the women Leon had access to, none could meet her conditions better than she did. Noticing Leon's eyes wandering before finally settling back on her, the princess, who had anticipated this, flashed a sly smile and slowly closed the loop. Didn't you think it through a lot but realized eventually that I am the best option, right? Scooching a little closer on the sofa, moving into a slightly more intimate distance, the princess gently took Leon's hand and spoke softly. I know, you might want a purer marriage, feeling that the engagement between us is mixed with too many other things and thinking my objectives are too strong. But, except for you, all my other choices would require leaving the capital city, or even the kingdom, abandoning everything I've worked so hard for over the years. Trust me, even if you're not ready yet, don't outright reject this marriage. Give both me and yourself a chance. Asterisk feels like we might have gotten the script flipped, huh? Asterisk, did we somehow get the wrong script in this play? When Leon prepared to come and break off the engagement, he had mentally prepared himself in advance, imagining that the princess might flatly refuse, impose harsh conditions, or even resort to threats and bribes. But what he hadn't expected was that the princess would choose to reason with him and even launch a confident and assertive pursuit. Could this count as pursuit? I admit, if I had to make a choice right now, we do seem quite suitable. As he was being cornered into the sofa by the ever-approaching princess, Leon, who shrank back like a timid housewife, summoned the strength of his steely resolve to pull back his hand and continued to resist arduously. But I don't necessarily have to make a choice, at least not right now. Since you're not in a hurry to make a decision, why are you rushing to reject me? Facing Leon's last-ditch resistance, the princess didn't rush to press harder, but instead adhered to the military tactic of surround on three sides, leave one open, offering a way out. I'm not forcing you to immediately accept this marriage. I just don't want you to cut it off too hastily. Leon, if you're in no rush to decide, why not maintain the current state? Give us more time to get to know each other, and not reject fate's gift so readily. You still believe in fate? I didn't before. The princess smiled. But since fate brought you to me, I'm willing to trust her this once. Please stop. Please stop. I'm really about to surrender. Faced with the princess's relentless combination of soft words, hard tactics, and awkward flirting, Leon, who found himself retreating step by step, finally couldn't resist her wave after wave of advances and had to raise his hands in surrender. Then, let's leave it at that for now. Let's leave it at that for now. Having successfully repelled Leon, who came to break off the engagement and recaptured all lost ground, the princess pulled up the shallow V-neckline of her nightgown, then sat up straight and cheerfully redirected the discussion. Also, regarding the matter of you helping me regain my identity, I haven't had the chance to thank you yet. For this, what kind of thank you gift would you like? No need for a thank you gift. Hearing the princess's words, Leon, who had just breathed a small sigh of relief, immediately became vigilant again, quickly waving his hand. I'm a cleaner for the Purification Bureau. According to the agreements between the Bureau and the royal families, it's my duty to ensure the safety of royal members, so the cleaner's thank you gift can be waived, but the prince's thank you gift is still due. Apparently taking great pleasure in Leon's reaction, the princess, leaning against the sofa's backrest, chuckled and then reached her fair and delicate fingers into the neckline of her nightgown. I should really not bother you. Why are you running away? Amusedly holding on to Leon, who was trying to leave, the Princess Veronica lightly placed a somewhat old pendant into his palm, speaking reminiscently. This is a pendant my mother gave me. Rest assured, it's not something with immense sentimental value, nor something that, by accepting it, you must marry me. It's just a small token of goodwill. Gently holding Leon's hand, ensuring he grasped the pendant still warm with body heat, Princess Veronica said earnestly, when my mother gave it to me, She hoped it would bless me with safety and success. Now I'm giving it to you, hoping it will keep you safe as well. Thank you. After feeling the— Actually, if it's just the Ryan family's inheritance, the support from the Department of Road Administration and the military, and a seat in the upper house that you want, you might not necessarily have to marry me. Leon, I'm definitely going to get married. Not waiting for him to finish, the princess interrupted, gazing at him with a serious face. This country cannot be entrusted to Joshua. He doesn't have the talent for it. So I want to and must become the next queen. A stable family and an heir to carry on the royal bloodline are indispensable criteria to becoming queen. Since I must marry and start a family with someone, why can't that person be you? Measuring the progress of luring him, seeing it was essentially complete, the princess, who had previously feigned retreat, immediately showed her true colors and launched a fierce final assault. To be honest with you, before and after you succeeded as the Duke of Lionheart, I conducted very thorough investigations into you. Once again taking Leon's hand, the Princess Veronica admitted her scrutiny of him, her face giving off a reminiscent glow. Though, at the time, I only intended to seize back some control over the military following the fall of the Ryan family, with no other intentions toward you. However, after you publicly proposed to me at the succession ritual, I quickly realized you were my ideal candidate for prince. Looking at Leon, who was a bit surprised, the princess spoke warmly of her assessment of him. Leon, you truly are wonderful. Not only hardworking, reliable, emotionally stable, and family-oriented, but you also take on responsibilities, never leaving your sick sister behind and even risking your life to save her by joining the High Mortality Purification Bureau. After joining, you worked diligently, courageously, fearless in the face of danger, advocating for victims during the sewage incident, with almost no desire for power, remaining indifferent to the title of Duke. Oh goodness! Hearing the princess's assessment of himself, Leon blushed and modestly said, I'm really not that great, and you're particularly humble. I admit that when I agreed to your proposal at the time, it might have been more for the seat of the Ryan family, but after careful consideration, I am now very sure that you are the best prince I could find. With you gone, I would definitely regret it in the future. Seizing Leon for a bout of genuine praise and expressing her determination to have him, the princess momentarily dimmed her eyes inwardly, her mood turning somewhat downcast as she said, Unlike me, who can only choose you, you have other options besides troublesome women like me. It might be unfair to tie you to me prematurely, but I truly don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Gazing into Leon's eyes, the princess shifted from her previous decisiveness, her bright eyes glistening with tears, speaking softly, This is the only time I'll have the chance to choose my husband with my heart. I admit I did use some tricks just now, but I really had no other choice. When I first heard you came this time to break off the engagement, I panicked completely, my mind in a whirl, so I instinctively used the most familiar means to try to keep you. Leon, please don't be angry with me, okay? If you reject me, then did I get tricked? Leon stood at the gates of the royal palace, holding the small gift princess had given to Anna. He had refused the royal carriage that could have taken him home and felt his emotions were incredibly complex while the night wind blew around him. That cunning woman, all the questions he had initially raised, such as the vast cognitive differences, the busyness of both their work, the troubles brought by his princely identity, and that she truly desired the Ryan family rather than himself. None of these issues, the real reasons that made him want to reject this marriage, seemed to have been addressed in the end. Even though the situation had not changed a bit from before, he not only failed to call off the marriage, but had also found himself firmly committed by her. Carelessly, he promised not to blame her, not to abandon her, to give her a chance, and never be the first to suggest breaking off. Had he not retained some part of his sanity at the critical moment, he might have even set the wedding date on the spot, getting utterly ensnared by the cunning princess. Yet strangely, even knowing he'd been thoroughly duped, whenever he thought of the princess's gentle words, her sleeve wrapped around him, and those eyes filled, at least seemingly filled, with him, he just couldn't get angry at her no matter what. Men? After cursing himself internally for being weak, Leon sighed, feeling both his demeanor and mood become increasingly complex as he descended the steps. Phew. Looks like Leon won't attempt to call off the engagement again anytime soon. As Leon reluctantly admitted to the failure of calling off the engagement, he descended the steps gloomily. Those who seek status often value face highly, so giving proper respect first usually influences their attitude. Those who want power are more practical, requiring immediate benefits to reach consensus. Those who crave wealth are realistic, but if you present a promising vision, they'd even accept empty promises. The hardest to deal with, however, are those who want nothing at all. Fishing requires bait, but Leon neither wanted status, power, nor wealth, and to him, even her identity as a princess was somewhat of a burden. So if he had adamantly insisted on breaking the engagement no matter what, she would indeed have been helpless, only able to watch this big fish slip away, waving its tail before returning to the sea. Fortunately, to propel Leon to the position of Duke of Lionheart, she had done extensive research and understanding, which allowed her to barely grasp his weakness, a soft heart coupled with inadequate thick skin. Even when fully determined to break off the engagement, his character would not allow him to speak harsh words, providing her with room to maneuver and pull. This even let her actively display goodwill, making direct rejection difficult for him, stabilizing the situation. Then, by proactively revealing her bottom line and stating that he was her only choice while appearing helpless and weak, making actively breaking the engagement seem a guilt-ridden choice, Leon, given his nature, would surely find it impossible to voice it. What a despicable woman I am. Watching Leon's figure fade into the distance, the princess on the balcony stayed silent for a moment, a slight apology reflected in her shining eyes. Sorry. But even with various ulterior motives, every word I just said was true. Marrying you indeed is my best choice, possibly my only choice, because only the marriage with you has the power to change the kingdom. 6 years ago, I arrived a step too late and couldn't save those who died in the war. Their figures consumed in the flickering orange flames have since become recurring nightmares, torturing me night after night. And if I were to take a step too late 6 years from now and miss my chance to change the kingdom, a far more painful nightmare would surely descend again, given the kingdom's current state. Maybe it's selfish, but I really don't want to regret it again. Watching as Leon gradually disappeared, his silhouette swallowed by the night, the princess let out a gentle sigh before departing the balcony. She returned to her desk, opening unfinished documents. On a shelf behind the princess, an old half-shattered tin doll silently watched her figure as she worked at her desk, a slightly sorrowful, eerie smile on its face. The Duke of Lionheart's night visit to the royal palace, a fortunate event approaching? A historic private meeting, princess's faction to seize power. Beauty or power? The love affair between Lion and Robin. Shocking. Night tryst between Duke of Lionheart and the princess. Could they be planning a marriage of convenience with a child? Gentlemen, those who have come here must already be aware of the news. A man in a brown suit leaned over a table covered with newspapers. Their headlines varied but all concerning the same event, and spoke with furrowed brows. I won't waste words. The reason for calling you here is to discuss one thing. What are your plans for this fool of a duke, who boldly proclaims he's offering the entire Ryan family as a dowry to marry the princess? What do we plan to do? Isn't the question what can we do? Amongst the old nobility invited, after exchanging glances for some time, an elderly earl with a head full of white hair stood up, indignantly suggesting, of course, he must be deposed. 7 of the kingdom's 17 main departments are already controlled by the royal family. If the Ryan family's Department of Road Administration and Military are also handed over, then more than half the departments will be under her command. Moreover, with the Ryan family holding a vice-presidential seat in the upper house, even if we join forces with the lower house, we might still be unable to so we must depose him. If that fool remains seated as duke, what does the future hold for us? Do we just live at the mercy of others? But the question remains how to depose him, and who is to carry it out. After the elderly earl finished speaking, another noble beside him sighed and said, "After the Ryan blood night, nearly everyone eligible in the Ryan family to stand up is gone, leaving only an old patriarch who never had real power and maybe a barely elected head of the family." But during the new duke's ascension ritual, the former duke's butler suffered a heart attack, the only remaining patriarch had a stroke out of anger, and the newly elected family head was so frightened by the Duke of Lionheart slapping the prince that he fell gravely ill and has yet to recover. There's no one left in the Ryan family to stand up. Indeed, after listening to this, the old nobility present in the room couldn't help but nod, showing expressions of helplessness. The Duke of Lionheart's succession ceremony was of course not something to be missed, and more than half of the old nobility there had been present at the event, witnessing firsthand how the three elders of the Ryan family fell, and they were well aware of the Ryan family's current situation. According to the traditions among the old nobility, if one wanted to depose the current Duke of Lionheart and bring in a new duke, it was necessary for a person with a status high enough from the Ryan people to step forward and take the lead before the in-laws could follow suit. Although this might sound somewhat old-fashioned, as if the fire is already at one's feet yet one must first find a raft before taking action, this was indeed one of the unspoken rules that the old nobility had to adhere to. After all, within the old nobility, there were many who had conflicts with each other, and even some feuds that had lasted for centuries. If these unspoken rules were not followed and one moved at will, the entire old nobility could collapse due to internal conflict before the princess could even take action. We can't worry about that much anymore. Looking at the newspapers on the table with headlines that made one's scalp tingle, a younger member of the old nobility stood up, proposing somewhat anxiously, "Even if no one from the Ryan family can take the lead, we can't go on like this. Everyone knows what the princess wants. If she really succeeds in the end, we might not even qualify as royal appendages, only to be strangled by her bit by bit. No matter what happens later, we must find a way now to remove this troublesome duke. At the very least, we can't let him take the Ryan family's resources and seats over to the princess, or else it will be too late." "That's what I think as well." Another young and vigorous member of the old nobility stood up, nodding in agreement. "Compared to those old rules, it's more important to stop the princess right now. We're no match for the royal family in terms of support, and we can't compete with the lower house's commercial guilds in terms of wealth. If we don't act now, it will be too late." "I second that." "Well, I have no objection." "Agree. Even if it doesn't work, we have to try." "Wait, calm down." Just as the old nobility were getting up, expressing agreement to forcibly replace the Duke of Lionheart, another older nobleman stood up, reminding them, "You must not forget, even if we could pass a vote in the upper house and forcibly replace the Duke of Lionheart, someone still needs to sit in that position." "That's not important." The young noble who spoke first said loudly, "It doesn't matter who sits in the Duke of Lionheart's position, as long as it's not the current one." "No, that does matter a lot." The old noble shook his head and said, "Have you not looked at the Ryan family's genealogy? Do you know, if you pass a vote in the upper house and forcibly replace the current Duke of Lionheart, according to the line of succession, the next duke would be his own younger sister. Then take a vote and remove his sister as well." The young noble said fiercely, "It's not a problem to concede some more benefits. Compared to being choked by the princess's new decrees or competing with the lower house businessmen, the cost of replacing two successive dukes is entirely acceptable, as long as we can remove this pair of siblings. After removing that pair of siblings, there's another pair still waiting." The old nobleman snorted coldly. "Take a good look through the Ryan family's genealogy. After her, the next in line to succeed as duke would be the current duke's younger brother, and then another of his sisters." "Heh, changing 4 Duke of Lionheart appointments in one day, you think the royal family is dead just watching you force these changes?" After consulting some closely related nobles and receiving a definitive answer, the young noble who proposed the forced replacement couldn't hold it together anymore. "So this family of 4 is putting a stranglehold on this path to change? Are we just going to do nothing and watch? Sitting by idly is certainly not an option, but acting directly won't work either. This is such a good opportunity. With the princess's character, she will definitely be on guard, not leaving us any chance. So what you're saying is, there really is no solution? There is a solution. Once most people's attention gathered around, the old noble finally unfurled his map of Yen country, squinting as he spoke. But before I discuss my idea, I must remind everyone that our Duke of Lionheart is far from as simple as he seems. Although he seems like a fool who doesn't understand the rules and acts recklessly according to his whims, just lucky. But let's calm down and think from his position. Even if he doesn't hand over the Ryan family, does he have the ability to keep it safe? Without this incident, aside from holding the empty title of Duke, what else would he have left? Would the Ryan family's situation be any better than it is now? After posing these questions, the old noble watched as the others began to think along his lines, their faces gradually showing a sense of realization, and he continued analyzing with narrowed eyes. To be honest, I think our Duke of Lionheart is the truly clever. From the very beginning, he understood that he had no ability to keep the Ryan family. Whether he tried to make allies of us in-laws or strained to maintain the Ryan family, in the end, nothing would be left. But his mind was clear. Knowing he didn't have the ability, he straightforwardly distanced himself from us, shamelessly proposing to the princess, bringing in someone capable of defending the Ryan family. After all, we don't need him to acquire the Ryan family inheritance, so he as a duke is worthless to us. But to the royal family and the princess, his duke status is the only entry ticket, worth every effort to win him over. And because of our presence, the royal family can't fully take over the Ryan family, having to use his Duke of Lionheart title to compete with us for the Ryan family's resources. This has instead created a subtle balance, allowing him to control the Ryan family. TSK, our Duke may not really understand how to be a noble, but he definitely knows how to do business, how to sell himself to the right target and at a great price. After expressing his admiration for Leon, the old noble paused briefly to give the crowd a moment to think, then picked up a newspaper from the table, lightly patting the words princess before making a suggestion in a loud voice. Gentlemen, it's time we learn from the clever Duke and seek out a more suitable buyer for ourselves. What do you think of Prince Joshua? Prince Joshua. Hearing the old noble's suggestion, the crowd couldn't help but frown, with someone unable to resist directly opposing. You want us to fully turn to the royal family? How is that any different from surrendering to the princess? Wouldn't we still be controlled by the royal family? First of all, I'm only suggesting turning to Prince Joshua. Moreover, since when did the princess represent the entire royal family? Asking this meaningful question, the old noble then completely unfolded the map of Yen country, revealing a dagger he had prepared in advance, and asked, Gentlemen, consider this carefully. Is what our princess wants the same as what the entire royal family wants? And is what the royal family wants the same as what Prince Joshua and the Queen and Minister of Finance behind him want? Glancing at the crowd who seemed to grasp something, the old noble leisurely explained, or to put it more clearly, besides the throne, what the princess wants is to limit the power of us nobles, which is also the desire of the whole royal family. So in the past, the princess could represent the will of the entire royal family. As for the Queen and the Minister of Finance supporting the royal family, it's because they received the king's promise, believing the princess would be married off, and the entire kingdom's future would belong to Prince Joshua. Naturally, they were happy for the princess to help him clear obstacles. But now, not only is the princess not married off, but she has also acquired enough power through her marriage to the clever Duke to sway the entire kingdom. The situation is quite different. Right now, the princess is strong and, with the king who wants to curb the old nobility's power applying pressure, even if the Queen and Minister of Finance are unhappy, they dare not make rash moves at this time. However, if the old nobility collectively turns to Joshua, giving our prince a strong arm of support, can the princess still represent the will of the entire royal family? So, just lift Prince Joshua up, let the Queen and the Minister of Finance behind him, and have them fight with the princess. After hearing the elderly noble's proposal, the assembly of the old nobility couldn't help but weigh the pros and cons, and they all fell into deep thought. For the majority of the old nobility to turn and side with the royal family, which sought to curb their power, this sounded like a ridiculously foolish idea. After all, Prince Joshua and the Queen were also part of the royal family. Siding with them would also bring a lot of control. If he really did defeat the princess and successfully rose to become the representative of the royal family's will, he would equally target the old nobility with madness, and the situation would remain unchanged. For the princess, who had already grown large, these old nobility held little value, but for Joshua, whose inheritance rights were precarious and could be married off from the kingdom at any time to wed a she-monkey across the sea, their support was nothing short of timely assistance. To obtain power to counter the princess, Joshua and the Queen behind him were sure to go all out to win over these people, offering unusually generous conditions, which would provide room for maneuver. As for what Joshua would do after ascending, that was a problem for later. If they couldn't suppress the growing princess now, they would be locked in a kennel, or even directly slaughtered, losing even the right to consider the future. Moreover, compared to the crafty princess, the prideful and arrogant Prince Joshua would be so much easier to deal with. This idea isn't bad. I agree. The young noble, who previously wanted to throw both Leon's siblings away, was the first to step forward and express support for the new proposal. Immediately, a large group of old nobility whose interests were threatened and who vehemently opposed the implementation of the new decree stepped up and expressed their support as well. I agree too. Seconded. Let's go with this, we've no choice left. Once the majority of the old nobility had already expressed their stance, even those more conservative individuals, though still harboring some doubts about this proposal, couldn't come up with a better solution at the moment. They chose to tacitly agree, or simply decided to give it a try and followed suit. Since the majority favors it, let's decide on this for now. After looking around the room at the overwhelmingly one-sided situation, the middle-aged man hosting the meeting took over and loudly announced, "In order to counter the princess's new decree, we shall collectively turn to the Queen and do our best to support Prince Joshua's succession. Additionally, to speak frankly, among the 92 noble families present today, even if there are dissenters, please keep in step with everyone. Even if you do not support Prince Joshua, please do not drag us down. Otherwise, don't blame others for being unsympathetic." The collective defection of the old nobility to the prince was naturally impossible to conceal. Before the old nobility's gathering even dispersed and actions began, the princess had already obtained the relevant intelligence. This is troublesome now. After receiving the list of old nobility who chose to turn to Joshua, looking at that long and alarming list of names, the princess's brows couldn't help but furrow deeply. Not to mention Joshua, she was all too familiar with that ambitious stepmother. Even if this incident hadn't occurred, she wouldn't have given up on Joshua's succession. She would have found an opportunity to cause a big stir, and now, with the support of the old nobility, her disruptions would certainly be larger. The unfortunate part was, if it were just some scheming, it would be fine. For a woman whose mind was in line with Joshua's, she only needed to dig a small pit to make her fall hard enough to behave for a while. But her brother, her inexpensively inherited uncle, was the current Minister of Finance, and he and his family behind him were the actual controllers of the Ministry of Finance, leaving her no room to interfere. And her implementation of the new decree relied heavily on financial support. She didn't even need to do much. With a few small tricks during the struggle for the throne, she could make the finances stagnate enough to halt the new decree before it started. As for breaking this deadlock, picking up a quill dipped in ink, she wrote a few words on the paper, and the princess couldn't help but sigh softly. The best solution was to actively provoke a small-scale border conflict and create a bloody incident. With the previous precedent of defending the country 6 years ago, upon entering a state of war readiness, even the most preliminary one, neither the Queen nor the Ministry of Finance dared to give her any hassle. Otherwise, not to mention letting Joshua inherit the throne, if the Queen dared to cause trouble at such a time, her father might climb out of his sickbed, eager to personally strangle Joshua. However, although this method could break the deadlock and didn't even require her to come forward, just a hint to Old Hill, who was the Minister of Defense, to silently solve the matter, it went against her initial intention, which was to avoid the kingdom descending into war, Then she had to try other methods. After scratching out war as an option, the princess moved the quill tip to the side and forcefully circled, "Push hard." The most appropriate course now was to take advantage of the moment when the old nobility had just aligned with Joshua and hadn't fully negotiated their cooperation. Through the Ryan family's upper house seat, she could enact parts of the new decree into law. As long as the new decree that restricts old nobility privileges and facilitates business development was forcibly executed, the commerce controlled by the lower house would find leverage and assist in pushing some of the new decrees. Even if the Ministry of Finance intended to block her afterward, touching the merchants' interests would bring significant resistance, as the merchants, being the largest source of tax revenue in the kingdom, held substantial influence over the Ministry of Finance as well. In this way, she might be able to leverage the Ministry of Finance to acquire the budget necessary for fully implementing the new decree. Let's go with this. After ticking off, "Push hard," the princess did not stop writing. Instead, she tapped the paper with the quill tip, continuing to ponder. To achieve all this, it was essential to secure the Ryan family's upper house seat to push through her new decree. And to secure that seat, a marriage alliance with the Ryan family was a must. That meant she had to deal with Leon. After dipping the quill in ink, writing Leon next to "Push hard," the princess, having fully clarified her thoughts, pondered for a while before ringing a bell to summon the maid waiting outside. "Mealy, is Master Wild's Morning Star Troupe performing currently?" "Yes, Your Highness." The maid nodded after a moment of recollection, then considerately inquired, "If you wish to take a break, the Morning Star Troupe sent their top-level balcony tickets." "No need." After waving away the maid's proposal, the princess instructed, "Just get me a couple of better seats in the second-floor box area. And remember to buy a couple's box." This is, staring at the hand-painted ticket with a watercolor of a misty starry sky and a small rose emblem in the corner, Leon asked, somewhat puzzled, "Are you saying the princess invited me to see a play?" "Yes." Curious, after glancing at the goat's head on Leon's desk, the maid, sent by the princess to deliver the ticket, bowed slightly and said respectfully, "Master Wild's Morning Star Troupe is performing his most classic play at the Central Cross Theater today. It's a rare opportunity. Princess Veronica loves Master Wild's works, and upon hearing the news, she thought of you immediately. She hopes you can make some time this afternoon to accompany her to enjoy the Morning Star Troupe's performance." "I don't believe you for a second." Remembering how confused he was when he tried to break off the engagement before, Leon's expression turned slightly dark and he instinctively became cautious. Would an absolute workaholic who has nothing but files on the bookshelf in his bedroom office hybrid really be a drama enthusiast? "Oh, come off it." Anyone with a bit of sense could see that this invitation wasn't genuinely about the play. She was definitely targeting him, relying on his keen vigilance to sense the simmering hostility behind the ticket. Leon simply shook his head and returned the ticket. "Please tell her I'm planning to work overtime today." When he had abruptly gone to break off the engagement before, definitely catching her off guard, he still almost got persuaded to receive a marriage certificate on the spot. This time, she clearly came prepared, and if he dared to join her for the play, it would likely then lead to dinner, shopping, clothes buying, a stroll down the street, sightseeing. "Oh, it's already so late. Why not stay over tonight?" and so on, trapping him completely. If he watched this play, he probably wouldn't be coming back. "Your Grace, please don't be in such a hurry to refuse." It seemed the maid, sent to deliver the ticket, was already aware of what might happen and wasn't surprised by Leon's refusal. Instead, she smiled softly, saying, "Although your sister Miss Anna's body has recovered, having been ill for many years means her health isn't particularly robust and still needs careful nursing." Coincidentally, Princess Veronica managed to find the best pharmacist in all of the capital city. Hearing the maid's words, Leon couldn't help but frown, saying, "So, is she implying that if I want to help Anna recover, I must accompany her to watch today's play in exchange?" "No, not at all. Please don't misunderstand." The maid hurriedly shook her head in response, saying, Princess Veronica mentioned that she has already made a similar mistake once before with you and would never make this mistake again. She promises to treat you sincerely and won't play any petty tricks anymore. Whether you go to see today's play or not, Miss Anna's health will receive the best care. Anna's situation isn't related to her invitation. Princess Veronica has already sent someone to request the pharmacist this morning. Moreover, aside from helping Miss Anna recover, she is also getting in touch with several experienced teachers to ensure your brother and sister can receive a better education without transferring schools. Besides that, the Purification Bureau's budget for next year will be maximally adjusted, among other things. Princess Veronica told me these aren't gifts or flattery, but her way of apologizing for the past events. At the time, she was impulsive and played a few not-so-nice tricks on you, for which she feels very guilty and wants to do something to make up for it. She hopes you won't refuse and will give her a chance to compensate you. Asterisk, is she compensating me? She's practically welding the ticket right into my hand. Asterisk. Having listened to the maid's relay, Leon could only let out a long sigh, realizing that he probably couldn't avoid attending the play this afternoon. Just one night had passed, and the princess had already done so much. Moreover, she refused to acknowledge any favor done or goodwill, insisting that it was to amend her previous mistake, hoping he'd offer her a chance to make up for it. She's gone this far and even lowered herself so much. Can I really bear not to accompany her to a single play? All right. She targeted his most cherished family, demonstrated her utmost sincerity right from the outset, and lowered her stance to offer favor without requesting anything in return. My own weakness seemed to have been completely exploited by her. Under the princess's intense offensive, Leon, whose face was yet to become thick-skinned to that extent, could only silently take the ticket from the desk, preparing to brace himself and head into this dragon's den and tiger's lair. Asterisk, watching a play isn't so bad. Where should I find her? Asterisk. And seeing him reluctantly putting away the ticket, the maid who brought it couldn't help but smile slightly. She then stood up, saluted, gestured slightly toward the door, and answered in a warm voice, Princess Veronica's carriage is now parked on the main road outside the police department. You can go directly, and Her Highness should be waiting for you in the carriage. Well then, she practically came right up to the doorstep, so she knew from the beginning that once I'd accepted the benefits, there was no way I'd be able to refuse to accompany her to the play, right? This woman really is. She might not have the smartest brain, but she truly understands human nature. Having only met me a handful of times, she found a way to completely handle me. Since resistance was futile, it seemed he had no choice but to enjoy it. Thoroughly arranged by the princess, Leon could only take his Dragon's Den and Tiger's Lair pass and leave the Purification Bureau, finding the carriage parked at the road's end under the maid's guidance. Here, over here. Upon seeing Leon, the princess, wearing a plush long dress, poked her head out of the carriage window, waving enthusiastically at him. She then proactively pushed open the carriage door, making room inside, her eyes full of joy, saying, I thought you'd be mad at me and wouldn't want to accompany me to the theater. Leon, you're the best. Asterisk. I'm the best. Huh. Quit messing around, will you? This was obviously all part of your plan. Given your usual busy schedule, if you weren't sure I'd definitely come, would you really spend the time waiting out here? Asterisk. Yet, even though he saw through the princess's little tricks at a glance, seeing that playful, charming face blossoming into a radiant smile because of his arrival, Leon's heart, which harbored minor resentment for being forced to come, couldn't help but dissipate instantly. Asterisk, how should I put it? For some people, even if you know she's likely pretending, and that even this smile might not be completely genuine, you just can't find it in your heart to stay mad at her. Asterisk. Thinking of all the effort she'd invested, just to win his favor, even though he knew it might be fake, he felt a bit touched. He was willing to act like a fool who understood nothing and just go along with it. Asterisk kiss. Leon. Oh Leon, you need to wake up. You can't let yourself become such a fool. Asterisk. Steadying his heart with a deep breath of chilly air, Leon quietly boarded the carriage, trying to ask calmly, "Princess, today? Call me Veronica." Sniffing her nose, reddened from waiting by the roadside in the cold, Princess Veronica took the initiative to hold Leon's arm, her soft and full body leaning gently against him, her voice pleading slightly as she said, "It's so cold today, Leon. Could you let me lean on you for a while? Just a little while." A short while later, "Are you still cold, Your Highness? Do you want to add another layer?"
No.
"No need." Hearing Leon's inquiry, the princess, wrapped in an old coat, wearing cotton gloves, clutching a hot water bottle, and holding a warm little puppy, shook her head slightly. Then, with a complex expression, she said, "Actually, I'm not that cold. Are you afraid of the cold, by any chance? Why do you carry so many things for warmth?" "It's not just things for warmth. I also have things for staying cool." Amidst Young Ha's puppy-like whining, the window next to Leon shimmered slightly. A sun hat and two somewhat worn silk fans appeared in his hands, followed by a small iron basin full of milky ice shavings. "Carrying fans and ice shavings in winter? What are you aiming for?" Seeing the princess's somewhat speechless expression, Leon explained calmly, "You know, our work at the Purification Bureau is very special. We often encounter unexpected situations like the seniors at the Lyra branch, who have been frozen at the poles for 2 years due to an accident. I worry that one day I'll encounter similar extreme situations during a mission, so I made some preparations in advance. I carry things like food, drinking water, and tools with me, just in case I'm unable to handle it. By the way, would you like to try some ice shavings? It's mixed with coconut syrup, very sweet."
No.
"No, thank you." After declining Leon's kind offer, the princess, who had deliberately frozen at the roadside for over half an hour for an excuse to flirt, reluctantly drank a large sip of the hot water Leon had prepared. Then, with a darkened face, she hugged Young Ha tightly and gave it a retaliatory kiss. Well, couldn't hug the dog man, but hugging his dog isn't bad either. Speaking of which, this little thing is quite adorably strange. Princess Veronica. Amidst the protests of the tormented Young Ha, Leon glanced down at the tickets in his hand and then asked proactively, "The Morningstar troupe you wanted to see, what plays will they be performing today?" "Of course, the most classic works of Master Wilde." Contrary to Leon's expectations, what the previous ticket-giving maid said about the princess liking Master Wilde's works seemed not to be entirely an excuse. When mentioning the plays they were about to watch, Princess Veronica's eyes lit up instantly. Hugging Young Ha, who was wagging its tail and struggling, she recounted enthusiastically, "Among them, a must-see every time is Master Wilde's masterpiece Madame Helena, which tells the story of a forbidden love between the former great engraver Madame Helena and her most outstanding apprentice. Especially, after enduring many hardships, the scene where the gentle and composed Madame Helena cannot control the stirring of her heart under the passionate and sincere pursuit of her apprentice has a sense of pure beauty amidst the taboo. But for the sake of her family and the apprentice's future, she could only choose to reject the young man's affection, cruelly sending him away. Still, as he walks away in melancholy, the moment she accidentally destroys her own work of years in her first moment of trembling loss has unparalleled impact. Then, when she picks up the engraving knife with tears and continues modifying the ruined statue, she realizes that the face she has carved countless times without thought is increasingly resembling the lover she rejected. Ultimately, she caresses the statue's face and cries silently. Madame Helena is an eternal classic in the history of drama. After passionately introducing her favorite work, perhaps fearing Leon might dislike such tragic romance, the princess eagerly advocated, "Leon, if you'd prefer to see something lighthearted, Master Wilde's works also include romantic comedies like 12 Days' Journey and Lucky House for Rent." 12 Days' Journey is an early masterpiece by Master Wilde, about the young Elijah who opposes his family's arranged marriage. He sneaks away to a seaside city before the wedding and, unaware of where to go sightseeing, hires the beautiful barmaid Agatha to be his temporary guide. During their 11-day journey, the two get to know each other and fall in love. But just as Elijah is ready to abandon his loveless marriage and pursue happiness, Agatha is mysteriously taken at the seaside. For the safety of his love, Elijah must return home to Mary, attempting to leverage his fiancée's family to find Agatha. However, incredibly, on the day Elijah, harboring the thought of giving up love for his lover's safety, marries his designated bride, the one who appears at the wedding is, in fact, Agatha, who also detested arranged marriage, escaped, but was forcibly brought back home due to her exposed whereabouts. How about it? Doesn't it sound intriguing? Can't wait, right? Seeing the princess's eyes sparkling with anticipation, clearly craving affirmative feedback, Leon couldn't help but grin. To be honest, it does sound decent, but you just gave me the main highlights of these two plays in a few sentences. Looking at the princess, eager to recommend her favorite plays while unknowingly revealing spoilers, Leon smiled wryly and cooperatively nodded. Indeed, I'm quite interested. Are we watching these today? Yes. One performance of 12 Days' Journey, one of Madame Helena, and after watching both, it will just be getting dark. With a successful recommendation, the princess beamed radiantly, hugging young Ha and expressing, "I knew it. No one can resist Master Wilde's works. Leon, believe me, although the Morning Star troupe has recently had some issues, preventing the lead actor from performing, and is somewhat lacking compared to before, with Master Wilde's scripts, I guarantee you absolutely won't regret it. Wow, you're usually that busy, yet you can still keep up with an acting troupe's cast changes. It seems what the maid said is true. You're indeed the ultimate fan of whatever master. Although inundated with spoilers before even seeing the play, seeing a princess who was more real than before, Leon paradoxically felt much less resistant to this trip to the dragon's den and tiger's lair. Okay, I'll trust you then. Smiling at the princess, once the carriage began to slow down and eventually came to a stop by the roadside, Leon first tossed the warming clothes and young Ha back into the window. He then stepped out of the carriage first, thereafter turning and extending his hand to the princess. Let's go. I hope today won't be a wasted trip. No. This performance is utterly unacceptable. You're like a bunch of puppets hanging by strings. Backstage at the Central Cross Theater, after watching the final rehearsal before the performance, a middle-aged man in a crisply pressed double-breasted white suit, without a single crease on him, couldn't help but toss his top hat aside and angrily berated a group of actors. Emotions. Where are the emotions? You're living people, not machines reciting the lines I wrote. If you want the audience to be captivated by your performance, then you must first be captivated yourselves. Stop worrying about those entrance steps, fussing over physical expressions, thinking about lighting and positioning. Drama doesn't fear your mistakes, nor does it require precision. What it truly wants is for the audience to empathize with your performance. Performances with pinpoint footsteps and movements more precise than a machine have no soul at all. A long, smoothly delivered monologue, where even the final notes of the aria have not a hint of variation, might not compare to a heartfelt cry. You're really, damn it, with Andre Band and unable to take the stage, what kind of crap are you performing? You're ruining my script. A bunch of fools. I wish I could just use strings to direct your performance myself. The middle-aged man seemed to hold a very high position in the theater company. Despite being berated for a full 10 minutes by him, not a single one among the dozens of renowned senior actors, who had toured half the world, dared to talk back. One timid actress even began to tremble and sob softly. Upon hearing the actress's sobs, the middle-aged man seemed to realize he had gone too far. After a brief silence, he stopped yelling and instead directed the actors to go through the first act of 12 Days' Journey again. Unfortunately, even with all the skilled actors giving their all, their years of hard-earned acting skills still couldn't meet the minimum standards of the middle-aged man. Seeing that this rehearsal was still so appalling, with no one living up to his expectations, the middle-aged man's barely suppressed anger could no longer be contained. A bunch of worthless fools. Foolish, useless fools. The middle-aged man ranted hysterically while throwing his crumpled hat on the floor and stomping on it, using all his strength to crush it beyond recognition. After venting most of his disappointment and anger, the middle-aged man found himself wanting to go through it all again. But when he glanced at his watch and realized it was already showtime, he sighed deeply in disappointment and extended his hand to the incompetent actors. "I guess I can't rely on you. I'll do it myself." With his regretful sigh, a row of large lights above the stage suddenly illuminated, completely lighting up the prop and scene-filled backstage. A series of puppets began to rise slightly as the middle-aged man moved his hands. The female lead of 12 Days' Journey, Agatha, wearing a waitress's uniform, had a face that was shedding tear-shaped droplets formed from wood. They rolled down her cheeks and plopped onto the backstage floor. "Hurry, hurry, hurry!" After quickly entering the reserved couples box, Leon found himself being tugged by Princess Veronica, who lifted her skirt with her legs and bent down unceremoniously, adjusting the chairs for Leon and herself to find the best viewing angle. "Come on!" She patted the empty seat beside her, urging with excitement, "Hurry and sit down." When we were coming in, I saw the announcer ready to take the stage. The first scene of the first act of 12 Days' Journey is about to start, and if you don't sit down soon, you'll miss it. Sitting down wasn't the issue, but are you sure this chair is meant for two? Seeing how the princess took up more than half of the double-seat chair, Leon couldn't help but ask, "Isn't this box's chair a bit narrow? Why else would it be called a couple's box?" Hearing Leon's question, Princess Veronica, who was eagerly looking towards the stage, responded with a sly smile at the corner of her mouth. Central Cross Theatre certainly wasn't short on funds, so the chair was deliberately made narrow. With the couple's box seating width, even two slender women sitting together wouldn't have much space to spare. A man and a woman sitting together would definitely be squeezed together by the armrests. And for a drama averaging over 3 hours, it's impossible for most people to sit with their legs together and perfectly poised the entire time. They'd definitely try to change positions, like one person sitting on the chair while the other person sits on their lap. Not too narrow at all, just perfect for two people. Even though she was fully aware of the situation, the princess, with ulterior motives, naturally wouldn't make it clear to Leon. After trying her best to scoot over and make room for Leon, Princess Veronica urged with her pursed lips, "Sit down quickly. The curtain's already drawn, and the opening instruments are playing." "All right then." Although he still thought it was somewhat narrow, seeing the curtain on the stage already drawn, Leon didn't say more and sat down in the half space the princess made available. And when he sat down, the princess, who had been holding herself back, relaxed and her soft, curvaceous body pressed against his. Even through the layers of clothing, warmth and astonishing elasticity were conveyed. So that's why, realizing the reason for the narrow chair, Leon instinctively pulled back a bit, but the princess took advantage of the situation, leaning in shamelessly. Her cold fingertips sneakily found Leon's right hand, entwining their fingers with a slightly cool feeling. "I just knew. This is definitely the dragon's den and tiger's lair. It does feel a bit snug." As his arm was continuously pulled to the right, his elbow brushing against something soft, Leon's mouth twitched slightly, and he whispered, "I could just stand and watch." "Shoo!" With her index finger in front of her lips, showing a gesture for silence, the victorious princess warned in a stern voice that carried a smug tone, "You need to stay quiet while watching a drama. But if you insist on talking, you can wrap your arm around my back and whisper it into my shoulder." "Guess I'll just sit." Having no way to counter her antics, Leon abandoned the idea of watching from a standing position and sat stiffly in the chair. Meanwhile, the coastal tune full of harbor ambience on the stage was wrapping up. An actor playing a narrator, holding shell-like bells, boomed in a voice against the backdrop of ocean organ and surf drum sounds. Ankara, in this serene harbor town, has no shortage of tides and sea breezes, nor of young souls yearning to find solace amidst its beautiful and expansive waves. As the narrator delivered the introduction with clear diction, a male puppet in a white outfit sauntered out from behind a wooden stage prop, sighing sorrowfully, Only 12 more days. In 12 days, I will no longer be a free soul, but a caged bird soaring within strange confines. Wait, something doesn't seem right? Watching the male lead Elijah lament on stage, Leon raised his hand to rub his eyes in disbelief. Asterisk, what am I watching? A drama or a puppet show? Why is the male lead on stage a talking marionette? Asterisk. In the somewhat bewildered expression of Leon, the puppet male lead on stage, who was suspended by strings, had already finished reciting his opening lines with great emotion. Then he stepped forward with gracefully measured stage movements, seemingly fast yet slow, toward the next plot point. Meanwhile, Leon, taking advantage of the scene transition while the tavern backdrop was being set up, leaned over to the princess's ear, full of doubt, and asked, "Veronica, do you see that male lead on stage? Is he a human or a puppet?" What kind of question is that? Princess Veronica was slightly taken aback by the question, not understanding why Leon would ask that, but remembering Leon's job. Her expression immediately turned serious, and she similarly tilted her head to whisper, "Human. He appears human to me. Do you see Elijah as a puppet?" Watching the tavern gradually light up under the stage lights and the leading lady in the tavern gracefully dancing with a prop tray in hand and her skirt fluttering, Leon frowned tightly and said, "Not just the male lead. In my view, all the actors currently on stage are talking puppets dressed in clothes. We must be encountering an abnormal event. Veronica, you are a loyal fan of Master Wild, so you should always be paying attention to the activities of the Morningstar troupe, right? Has there been any news worth noting about this troupe lately?" News worth noting? Understanding that Leon was gathering intelligence to complete the task of purification, Princess Veronica took one last regretful look at the stage and, without rushing to ask questions, cooperated by trying hard to remember. Come to think of it, there are some odd things. After searching her mind, the princess slightly furrowed her elegant brows and began to recount. The leading actor of the Morningstar troupe, Andre, who worked the longest with Master Wild, was boycotted due to a scandal, and a suitable replacement has yet to be found. In several subsequent performances, due to coordination issues with the new actors, critiques among theater enthusiasts have been quite low. Master Wild seemed very irritated by this and reduced the number of troupe performances, starting closed training sessions. However, reporters discovered that the food sent into Central Cross Theater during the training was not touched at all, and was directly thrown into the surrounding trash bins, leading to suspicions that the closed training was just a pretense. It caused quite a stir. The food sent to the theater wasn't consumed? Upon hearing this, Leon frowned slightly, feeling that the news sounded somewhat familiar. After carefully flipping through his notebook he carried, he finally recalled abruptly. After the Ryan Blood Night and having basically recovered, he ran back to the Purification Bureau from the hospital, and before being trapped in the police department's dungeon, the bureau chief had given him some investigative tasks. These included the missing shepherds searching for goats in Pov County, the arsonist roaming around Lowther Arcade, and the food problem of the Morningstar troupe, among others. At the time, after investigating several rounds, he felt that these tasks did not seem like abnormalities, ultimately choosing the task to rescue Amy at Rose Manor. Later, when infiltrating the rebels, he discovered that the arsonist was actually the holder of an anomalous object of the rebels, a man named Teague, who liked to smell people's burns with his nose. Now, the Morningstar troupe indeed had a problem. Including the Scales Gold Sect bishop he met at Rose Manor, 3 out of the 4 tasks he received were confirmed to be related to abnormalities, indicating the bureau chief's level in assigning tasks was notably high. Leon. After waiting a while without hearing Leon's response, the princess could not help but gently ask, "What do you think? Will these theatergoers be in danger? I have made a discovery, and it's somewhat good news." Returning to his senses, Leon nodded and said, "If what I perceive is true, then the theater's food being thrown away is because all the actors in the entire troupe have become puppets that do not need to eat. And from that time until now, quite a while has passed, but no large-scale disappearance or injury among the theatergoers has occurred, indicating that this is a relatively stable abnormal event and is unlikely to affect the audience. That's good then. Upon hearing Leon's words, Princess Veronica couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, then leaned over to softly ask, "What can I do to help? Secretly organize an evacuation, or—" "No, don't do anything." After vetoing the princess's proposal, Leon tilted his head and softly said, "Since in so many past performances, the audience was able to leave safely and no large-scale incidents enough to alert us at the sub-district occurred, simply watching the play should be safe. According to Emma's Remain, according to the experience taught by a senior colleague, when the specific ability of an anomalous object is uncertain and it is unlikely to cause large-scale harm, never rush to break the current balance. So what we should do now is wait in the box for 6 hours until the performance is complete. Once most of the audience, including you, has safely withdrawn, I'll find a way to come back with senior colleagues from the Bureau and complete the purification as safely as possible." "Okay, I'll take your word for it." Princess Veronica nodded, her cold little hand clutching Leon's palm. Resting her lips close to Leon's earlobe, she warmly and somewhat worriedly advised, "Remember to stay safe, and if there's anything I can do to help, let me know, and I'll do my utmost to assist." "Ah!" The breath exhaled by the princess tickled Leon's neck, and after completing the intelligence inquiry, he shifted slightly to alleviate the discomfort and tried to resume a proper sitting posture. But at this moment, he noticed that the princess's soft palm was slightly damp. Her upper body leaning against him trembled uncontrollably, and her legs beneath the long dress were pressed together, seemingly very tense. After a moment's hesitation, Leon freed his right hand from her grasp, looped his arm around her back, leaned over to her ear, and reassured her gently, "Don't worry, this abnormal event isn't highly dangerous, and with me here, you'll undoubtedly be fine." Suddenly embraced, the princess was somewhat surprised. In the dimly lit box, she raised her head to glance at Leon, and upon noticing his concerned expression, she lowered her head and softly murmured in agreement and submissively leaned into his embrace. Actually, I'm not scared. It's just that I drank a little too much hot water on the carriage and feel slightly urgent, but this is quite nice. Cooperating, he knows how to take care of my emotions, not bad, my treatment of him wasn't in vain after all. It seemed that Leon really fell for this trick. Just by acting slightly weaker, I could earn some extra favors from him. Sensing the atmosphere was just right, the princess, finally getting some return on her numerous efforts despite her ongoing worries about the anomalous events, decided to temporarily set aside her concerns. With a slightly tense demeanor, she asked in a faint, helpless voice, "Leon, are you sure nothing will happen?" "Don't worry." Leon tapped twice on the box's mirror, calling out the temporarily enclosed black goat. While instructing it to find the location of the anomalous object's holder, he kept his eyes fixed on the puppets on stage, and without turning his head, he softly reassured, "I just had a friend take a look. The audience members' souls are all normal, with no signs of being controlled or anything of the sort. Simply watching the show should be safe. Moreover, the Morning Star troupe has performed this over a dozen times since the news broke out. If there were going to be problems, they would have already emerged, not waited until now to tap, 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 tap." Before Leon could finish speaking, strange sounds emanated from the direction of the stage. A torrent of wood beads, the size of teardrops, uncontrollably fell from the female lead puppet's face, clattering onto the stage floor. From all the audience's perspective, the heroine, who was supposed to smile and accept Elijah's invitation to begin a wonderful 12 days journey, suddenly started to cry eerily. On Agatha's beautiful face, though adorned with a playful yet charming smile, big, despairing, and painful tears uncontrollably flowed down from her bright eyes. Seriously? Does trouble only follow when I arrive? Watching the sudden halt of the performance as the puppets started trembling on stage, Leon found himself unable to maintain his composure. Audience members, noticing the anomaly, began to react with a tumult due to the female lead's abrupt crying. "Why is she crying? Did something happen to the actress's family? Oh, come on. I rarely attend a play, and it turns out like this. Is this the level of the Morning Star Troupe's lead? TSK, TSK, TSK. Ever since Andre got blacklisted, you can't watch Morning Star's plays. Damn it. I traveled so far specifically for this. Is this how they repay us? Damn it. Refund. Everyone, please listen to me. Amidst the mixed noises of curiosity, regret, and anger from the audience, the Central Cross Theater Troupe's manager hurriedly ran out from backstage, pushed aside the actors in his way, and rushed to the microphone. He continuously bowed to the audience, profusely apologizing with a sweaty face. The actress playing Agatha today had a family matter, so her emotions may not be very stable. This affected your theater experience, and we are deeply sorry. Rest assured, our theater will take full responsibility. After the show, we will refund the ticket price for this performance in full, and visitors from afar will also receive small gifts. Come quickly. Apologize to everyone. Hearing the manager's words, the audience's anger slightly abated. However, for some reason, even after repeated hints from the theater manager, the actress playing Agatha had no reaction whatsoever. She maintained her original posture, with large tears streaming down her face as she continued to smile at the audience. What's her deal? Messing up the performance and still has the nerve to smile? Is this the quality of Morning Star's actors? It's not just Morning Star, is it? In recent years, Master Wilde hasn't produced any new works with integrity either. Indeed, the new works from Well, sorry, she might be too self-reproachful, so for the moment, a bit bewildered. After attempting to explain the actress's side with a forced smile, the theater manager, whose body was slightly chubby, wiped his sweat with a handkerchief and tried to placate the dissatisfied audience. Everyone, the stage needs to be reset, and the actors have to prepare again. In the meantime, why don't we invite Master Wilde to come out and chat a little with everyone? The possessor of this anomalous object should definitely be him. Watching the middle-aged man who was brought forward to interact with the audience, Leon looked at the glass in the couple's box and received a confirmation response from the black goat. Then this possessor of an anomalous object is identified as Master Wilde, with abilities related to puppets, theater, manipulation, and currently, no record of causing harm. Having gathered relatively complete intelligence, Leon didn't linger further. He opened the couple's box door and hurriedly led the princess towards the exit passage. Although things seemed safe for the moment, faced with completely unknown abnormal circumstances, it was prudent to send the princess out first, and then have her bring people over to organize an audience evacuation quickly. As for himself, he should distance himself a bit, setting up the sniper rifle in a location where he could monitor the scene yet not be impacted immediately, in case the master suddenly lost control. Nonsense. There's nothing wrong with my script. Just as Leon and the princess were about to enter the exit passage, Master Wilde, over at the stage, was seemingly angered by some part of the audience's remarks and shouted angrily towards them. It's the actors who are lacking. I wrote the best scripts, but with their level, they simply can't bring out the essence of the characters or portray such complex and profound emotions. If Andre were still here. Really? As soon as Master Wilde's angry shout ended, a man, likely a drama critic or something similar, sitting in the front row facing the main stage, coldly retorted. Drama is inherently an art of trade-offs, meant to convey stories spanning days, years, or even decades within a mere 2 or 3 hours. Therefore, learning to balance structure and emotional allocation, adjusting the script. Pardon my frankness, but if your plays are worthless without excellent actors, could it be that the outdated content you write is inherently worthless? Damn it! Hearing the friendly exchange. Sure enough, after hearing the middle-aged man's words, Master Wilde, who still seemed in a relatively stable mental state, was essentially ignited on the spot. His bloodshot eyes widened fiercely, and he raised his hand towards the audience, gritting his teeth. Worthless? I'll soon show you just how foolish your previous remarks are. With Master Wilde's angry shout, all 3,000+ audience members in the Central Cross Theater, including Leon and the princess, who had already rushed into the exit passage, shuddered in unison. Subsequently, to the terror of the audience, they not only lost control of their bodies, but their skin and flesh began to lose their human appearance, rapidly petrifying into wood-like forms. And a multitude of completely invisible lines quietly descended from the azure sky above the harbor city, precisely tying to each joint of these 3,000-plus puppet-like bodies. This should do it. Taking a deep breath of the fresh yet slightly salty sea breeze, gazing at the serene and beautiful harbor town before him, and the 3,000-odd residents living tranquilly within, Master Wild finally revealed a satisfied smile on his weary face, and his right hand, just raised towards the audience, came down heavily. 12 Days Journey. Act 1, Scene 1, begin. Name: Drama King. Doll. Fictional. Domain. Appearance: currently appears as a middle-aged male human who dresses meticulously, likes wearing a top hat, and has a slightly weary face. This human claims to be the great playwright Wild and often appears near the backstage of the Morning Star troupe. Ability: Soul Doll. Fictional will. Drama Domain. Cost: the user of this anomalous object must have an unparalleled passion for theater. When the user's passion begins to wane, their soul will be replaced by the Drama King, and the appearance of the Drama King will undergo corresponding changes. File: as the 12th user of the Drama King, and the greatest of them all, Master Wild's love for theater never faded and even grew daily as he witnessed the real world during his tours. Regrettably, although his soul remained fervent, his tired and fragile body cooled down 3 years ago, inadvertently triggering the replacement effect of the Drama King. After Master Wild's true soul departed, the replacement Drama King neither matched his artistic level nor found a new user who loved theater more deeply than Master Wild. Hence, the Drama King could only strive to finish the scripts Wild hadn't completed, and continued the Morning Star Troupe's world tour as per Wild's last wishes. However, with the declining reputation of the new plays and the constant change of Morning Star Troupe members, the self-proclaimed Drama King of Master Wild found it increasingly difficult to accept these changes, ultimately reaching the brink of complete loss of control. Evaluation: great criminals and great artists share a common trait, which is that neither likes the world as it is. To create art capable of changing the world, the creator is the only ruler of it. Contamination value: 16. Through your own having understood the rules and effects of the Drama King, your resistance to this anomalous object increased significantly. You can now shield against deeper levels of influence. So, it's an out-of-control anomalous object that went berserk after losing its user. Speaking of which, its contamination value is really high, easily equivalent to 2 parts of the black goat. It seems I'm in quite a bit of trouble this time. With the resistance provided by materialism, Leon tore off the transparent fine threads tied to his forehead, regaining his will. He moved his limbs slightly, then looked at the incredibly realistic seaside town before him. Ankara. Upon seeing the words City of Passion and the Waves, Ankara on a signpost at the dock, Leon couldn't help but furrow his brows slightly. If he so, have I to become one of the actors in it? Thinking of this, Leon hesitated slightly and didn't use the resistance from materialism to remove all the threads on him, leaving part of them intact. Senior Emma once told me that for this type of domain anomalous object, it was nearly impossible to break by pure brute force unless the Leon value exceeded the user's by more than twice. His value alone wasn't enough to break through that. According to Senior Emma, the only solution to this type of anomalous object was to eliminate the user before they took action. Otherwise, one must obediently follow the rules of their domain. From the intelligence on Drama King, the core rule of this domain was undoubtedly drama. So for someone like himself who was unfamiliar with the play 12 Days Journey, there might be a use for these threads. It was best not to hastily remove them all. Additionally, after being turned into a doll, his capabilities were greatly weakened. He had lost contact with Young Ha, unable to retrieve his sniper rifle or other anomalous objects from the mirror world. Although his Holy Spirit pendant was still with him, its effect was severely limited. Thinking of this, Leon controlled the power of the Holy Spirit pendant, lightly scratching his arm. Seeing the slowed, yet still healing body afterward, he let out a slight sigh of relief. The good news was that the Yang Xian was still usable. Although Drama King's ability could affect the soul and bypass the protection of Yang Xian, since the effect was of the manipulation type rather than the damage type, it wasn't likely to cause trauma to the soul, providing some measure of safety. Next, what I needed to do was find the princess who was also dragged inside while avoiding touching the drama rules and attracting the oppression of the drama domain. Once her safety, and that of others affected, was ensured, I could figure out how to deal with the out-of-control Drama King and resolve the sudden anomalous event. Feeling a clear pulling force from the threads on his body, Leon quickly relaxed and moved along the direction of this pulling force, walking down the road ahead. Was it the start of the plot? Did it require my involvement? Having an inkling of what was happening, Leon couldn't help but lower his head slightly, looking at the clothes he was wearing. Shiny shoes with fake soles, tight pants adorned with small metal pieces, a weird suit made of some printed fabric of an eye-popping color, awkward little accessories on the cuffs and collar, and a slicked-back bright yellow hair with wax. Honestly, this bizarre outfit made him look more like a schizophrenic peacock than a person. So, in the theater world script, my role is the clown? With an uncontrollable subway, old man, cell phone expression appearing on his face, Leon gave a slightly disgruntled click of the tongue, then let the threads control him, swaggering toward the dock tavern where the protagonists met. Oh well, a clown it is. Compared to what role I played, the most important thing now was to reach the place where the plot unfolded and quickly find the princess to confirm her safety. Soon, Leon's character strolled into the tavern where the scene began with a signature swagger, casually sitting at a windowside table. Shortly after, a voluptuously beautiful waitress, with a name tag hanging on her chest, walked over with butterfly-like steps, smiling brilliantly as she asked, "Mr. Joseph, what would you like to drink today?" Whoa! Glancing at her chest, figure rather, despite both her appearance and demeanor having changed significantly, Leon recognized at a glance that this waitress was undoubtedly the princess he was looking for. And what's even more troublesome, Agatha. After reciting the name on her name tag, Leon couldn't help but blink with extreme disbelief. Well, it's only been 5 minutes, and I turned into a neurotic yellow-haired punk while you've become the lead female character of the whole play? Woof! When Leon touched the tuft of yellow hair on his forehead and was about to say something, he heard an unusually excited puppy bark. Feeling that the sound was quite familiar, Leon couldn't help but look toward it, only to find a little husky with a tuft of yellow hair on its head. It had leapt up from a distant counter, wagging its tail at him with a face full of surprise. Young Ha, do you have a role as well? Thanks to that unique tuft of yellow hair, Leon recognized Young Ha's identity. Looking at Young Ha, who had some kind of bomb on its face and 2 little braids tied with pink ribbons on its head, Leon was about to call out to it. However, a will transmitted through the threads on his body changed the words that came out of his mouth. What I want, Agatha. Do you not know it yet? Drawing his gaze away from Young Ha and smoothing the yellow gunked-up hair on his head, Leon, or Mr. Joseph, as he was currently known, lifted his hand to his mouth and produced a lush red rose. With the rose, which was a bit prickly, clenched between his teeth, Mr. Joseph performed a series of flamboyant gestures before grabbing Agatha's arm and raising an eyebrow, eyes sparkling as he proclaimed, "Compared to the watered-down beer in this tavern, what I truly desire is to pluck you, the blossoming rose." Vorsh. What kind of dog's hit line is this? Beyond just Leon, the overwhelming actions disgusted others as well. After experiencing the overwhelming scent of Mr. Joseph's cologne, the radiant smile of the waitress Agatha became forced. Mr. Joseph, pushing Leon gently away with her hand, Vibrant and fiery Agatha took a glance at the rose in Leon's mouth, smiled, and declined. "It's not proper. If you truly love a rose, then please let it flourish in the garden. After all, the rose you want doesn't love those exquisite and expensive vases. What it truly yearns for is the vast expanse of freedom and the brilliant sunlight unblocked by glass." Yes, yes, yes. You're right. Perhaps not the first time he'd been refused. Mr. Joseph wasn't mad after taking that soft blow. He spat out the prickly rose with a grin, licking the wound on his lip while gleefully saying, "When it comes to property, my family has the most land in town. The land my father left me is indeed vast and is on especially sunlit slopes. It's exactly what your charming rose desires. Dear Agatha, if you fancy wild roses, I can even plant you a whole field. Ha. Indeed, we are a perfect match." Asterisk got it. My role is the dumb son of a landlord. Huh. Asterisk. Mr. Joseph, that wasn't what I meant. Despite being so obvious, the landlord's dumb son still didn't get it. Agatha couldn't help but shake her head in resignation, considering that she only planned to stay in this city for another 2 weeks, leaving as soon as the engagement was broken off. She didn't get entangled further and said with a smile, "Let's put this aside for now. You still have to place an order." All right. Upon hearing the words of his passionately pursued goddess, Mr. Joseph nodded repeatedly, as if oblivious to his yellow hair, and casually scribbled something on the menu before handing it back, winking suggestively. "Just this, and as usual, send it to the table nearest to the counter. The perfect spot to admire my rose." All right. After the princess left amused yet exasperated, Leon, back in his seat, pulled the barely visible strings on him slightly apart, then squinted his eyes contemplatively. While he acted to the intent of the strings, Leon wasn't idle. As he supported the princess acting as Agatha, he secretly tugged on the strings on the princess's arm, hoping to free her as well. But unfortunately for Leon, whose current contamination value was barely 5, relying on the resistance provided by materialism to break free and gain freedom was already the limit. Saving someone from the Drama King's contamination value of 16 was utterly unrealistic. So he could only continue acting for now, despite performing some flamboyant movements in his seat. Receiving no obstruction from the Drama King hinted to Leon at the functional range of these strings. Reasonable, character-fitting, and slightly dramatic actions wouldn't incur heavy resistance. However, like earlier, even when having the chance, not immediately professing love, but rather interacting with the goddess's dog was not character-fitting and would be stopped. With this understanding, there was more leeway. Surveying the other side of the restaurant, where the handsome youth chatted merrily with Agatha, Leon's eyes narrowed slightly. Based on their conversation, his character was clearly a comic foil to highlight the protagonist, even currently jealously staring at the protagonist. He might even have a conflict with the protagonist later on due to jealousy. As said by the princess, the main antagonist in 12 Days' Journey was the female lead Agatha's family, so he probably only appeared in the first act, being put in his place by the protagonist before exiting. The second, third, fourth acts might not even include him. That won't do. Glancing towards the protagonists, yellow-haired Leon began contemplating a way to steal the show, while pondering the core logic of the master of drama's ability. If guessed correctly, the original actress playing Agatha was mentally breaking down under the master of drama's endless control. So the princess, lauded as the most beautiful in the capital city, was chosen as the lead actress. After all, choosing someone else as the lead and letting Princess Veronica play a supporting role would see her completely overshadowed by the princess in appearance, poise, and figure, which would ruin the play. The master of drama had no other option. As for why he became the landlord's dumb son, recalling his past experiences, Leon's face darkened instantly. Truly, he was very suitable. Not to mention, merely the identity of the Duke of Lionheart made him the biggest landlord in the entire theater, aligning well with Mr. Joseph inheriting his father's estate to become the town's richest man and his backstory. Coincidentally, to everyone, He was a notorious wastrel, leaving the entire Ryan family to the royal family for the princess's beauty. Even the persona of a desperate simp aligned, making him the ideal pick for the landlord's dumb son. Mr. Joseph. Just as Leon prepared to stir things up, aiming to intervene in the subsequent plot of 12 Days' Journey, Agatha, having helped the protagonist Elijah complete his order, took a quick run to the kitchen and then returned with a steaming tray. "Your wine and dishes are ready." Pressing her rose juice-dyed nails on the menu, leaving 2 slight marks, Agatha said with a smile, "There are other guests to attend to, so I won't linger. Please enjoy your lunch." Enjoy. My lunch? Staring at the tray's familiar sheep head, barbecued red and coated with pepper sauce full of tiny meat bits, holding a large red apple in its mouth, Leon couldn't hold his expression anymore. "No, seriously, even young Ha got a roll, but how the hell do you have one too?" "I'm so enraged." After the apple was taken out of her mouth, the black goat spat out the juice from her mouth in fury and roared in Leon's soul, "I am a demon. A great demon. That wild. How dare he treat me like this? Don't stop me. Once we get out of here, I'm definitely going to tear it apart. Ah, right, you're an 8-point little chicken. Tearing apart a 16-point opponent seems too easy." Leon couldn't be bothered with the black goat's impotent rage. He grabbed its braided sheep horns and tossed the sauce-covered thing onto an empty plate meant for collecting trash. While munching on other side dishes on the plate, he read the lips of the male and female protagonists conversing in the distance, trying to make out their dialogue. According to the plot summary given by the princess, the male protagonist Elijah was originally just resisting a loveless marriage, coming to this small town to relax. But in the tavern, he was attracted to Agatha's enthusiastic and lively personality and endless energy. He invited her to tour the small town with him. Over 11 days of exploration, their hearts grew closer, and with Agatha being kidnapped and their reunion at the wedding, they eventually became partners. After running the story through his mind, Leon's eyes reflected a thoughtful expression. So, here's the question. Even if Agatha isn't really a waitress and is just working here, without other waitstaff seen in this little tavern, can the boss really let her take 10 days off at once? Moreover, from the content of their conversation, although both the male and female leads seemed a bit love-obsessed, valuing love and freedom above all else, neither were a frivolous nor casual character. With the male lead under an engagement, unsure whether to escape marriage, it was unlikely for him to invite a beautiful stranger on a city tour. Similarly, the female lead Agatha was of a more reserved nature, typically unlikely to accept such an intimate 11-day invitation from a stranger male. So in the first scene at this tavern, something must have happened to quickly bring them closer, not enough to make them recognize each other, but at least to form an initial trust and affection. After deducing the likely attitude changes in the first scene, Leon glanced around at the tavern's guests and their states, making some predictions about what might happen next. The most probable scenario was that some trouble arose in the tavern. The male protagonist tried to help Agatha but ended up causing her to lose her job, so he invited her to be a guide, hoping to offer some economic compensation. And Agatha, due to the male lead's righteous defense or some other act, developed a trust and closeness to him. Since she planned to leave in 2 weeks, she accepted the guide job, making everything reasonable. As for the source of the trouble, you're talking nonsense. My drinking capacity is great. In Leon's contemplative gaze, near the male and female protagonists who were discussing poetry, a table of red-faced, drunken patrons finally started making a ruckus. A red-faced sailor rolled up his sleeves, slammed his fist on the tavern's old wooden table, and argued with a puffed chest and glaring eyes. "I can at least drink 5 more. If you 2 pass out, I'll still be standing." "Cut the bullshit." 2 sailors sitting across from him laughed and cursed. "5 more? With your wobbly stance, you'd be lying down after 2 more. Haha, not wrong. If you drink 5 more, you'd indeed be straight, but flat on the ground." "Bullshit." Faced with his companion's relentless ridicule, The already swaying sailor lost his temper and stood up abruptly, shouting loudly, "If I go down, I'm your grandson. Today's alcohol is not even a fraction of what I usually drink." All right, I believe you. You could say you can drink a whole barrel, and I'd believe. Haha. Right, you usually drink a lot. Today you're just wobbly from the sea breeze. Nothing to do with alcohol at all. I'm telling the truth. If I'm lying to you, I'm a dog. After suffering a second round of teasing, the drunk, slightly embarrassed man looked around and promptly grabbed Agatha's arm, pulling her over by force, drunkenly shouting, "Anne, Agatha, or whatever. You're the server here. You tell them how much I usually drink." Startled as she was suddenly yanked over, Agatha looked taken aback. But whether it was her nature or the princess's influence, as the female protagonist, she quickly calmed down, responding gently, "Sir, you seem to be a bit drunk, how about?" "Haha. Did you hear that? She said you're drunk. Looking for someone to vouch? Anyone can see you're down for the count. Why keep pushing?" Agatha's response might have been fine at another time, but for a brawny man embroiled in a drinking dispute, it was akin to pouring oil on the fire. Listening to the loud laughter of his two companions, the booze-fueled brute's eyes reddened instantly. He gripped Agatha's shoulders with both hands, glaring with bloodshot eyes and roaring angrily, "I'm not drunk, you little woman. Let go." At that moment, Leon felt the string on him pull sharply, standing him up directly, and bellowed with righteous anger, "Take your hands off her! Stop harassing my Agatha! Is this my job? Shouldn't the male protagonist be stepping in to help right now?" As Leon was pondering it, the drunken brute in the distance, getting mad, grabbed an empty bottle on the table and threw it over, smashing it into pieces against the table near Leon. "Ouch!" Accompanied by the shriek of Mr. Joseph, who narrowly missed being hit by the bottle. The drunken sailor twisted his thick neck, glaring as he cursed, "Piss off, pretty boy. I'm talking to this woman, what's it got to do with you? Just make sure to hold on to your balls. Speak up again, and I'll beat you." Under the string's control, the hero of justice, Mr. Joseph, actually complied with the demand, pressing his legs together with a pale face, trembling and sitting back down. Got it. Adding this part suddenly is meant to highlight the male protagonist's courage through my faltering. Is it? In Leon's somewhat displeased gaze, the drunken brute turned back to continue but noticed another table of patrons standing up, crossing his arms with a face full of dislike, questioning out loud, "Are you guys sailors from the Seagull merchant ship? So what if we are?" Realizing that yet another person had stood up, the drunken brute pointed at him impatiently. "Did I say you? Mind your own business, heard me? Or watch out for my... Hey!" Seeing his hand slapped away, the drunken brute was enraged. Just as he was about to lash out, the handsome man across furrowed his brows, saying, "I am close with the Seagull's first mate. If you cause trouble here, I will definitely tell him about what happened today. Word for word." "Haha. Are you using him to threaten me?" The drunken brute seemed infuriated, staggering over while saying with menace, "What about the first mate? The first mate can control me drinky." Amid the bewildered eyes of everyone, a shiny patent leather shoe with a heel peeked out from between the drunken brute's legs, or put it another way, the flamboyantly dressed fellow who was scared earlier somehow slipped over and kicked the drunkard right in the manhood. "Run!" Taking advantage of the moment's bewilderment, Leon, having torn off the strings, ran over, executing a secretly learned female officer's crotch kick perfectly, and immediately swept Agatha into a horizontal carry, sprinting towards the door amidst her screams. Incredibly, before making his escape, he didn't forget to kick over the table, spilling its leftovers over the drunken man's comrades. Before the three, momentarily stunned by the unexpected hit, could react, Leon had zigzagged and vanished out of sight. Watching the beauty who left his side, the male protagonist was befuddled. Seeing the plot spin out of control, the master of drama grasped the string with an utterly baffled face. There's still one here who didn't run. Beat him up. In the expressionless silence, the three sailors who had been wronged first came to their senses. Knowing they themselves were drunk and definitely couldn't catch the two outside, they gritted their teeth and surrounded Elijah, intending to vent their anger on him. Wait. You can't hit me. Aware things were gravely amiss, the male protagonist could no longer hide his identity, turning pale as he blurted out, I am a guest on the Seagull and also… Bang! Just as Elijah was about to reveal his identity, hoping to avoid the beating, there came a bang from behind. The pretty boy who had just bolted with Agatha barged back through the door by kicking it open. In the dumbfounded faces of several people, the flamboyant, multicolor-clad Leon rushed to the counter, grabbing the dog lying on it, then darted to his former seat, sweeping up the unfinished dishes with the plates, and promptly leaping out through the window, vanishing once more around the street corner. The three brawny men were utterly stupefied. The master of drama, clutching the string, began to grind his teeth. As for Elijah, surrounded by three drunks, his face turned into one of utter despair, worse than crying. What the heck? You came back not only for the dog but even took away the half-eaten dishes. And me? This living person, how about you save me at least a bit? Are we really leaving like this? The princess, dressed in a server's outfit, couldn't help but ask as she glanced back at the small tavern clattering with noise. Mister, Elijah hasn't run yet. If he stays there, he might. Don't worry. He won't be in trouble. After tossing Young Ha onto his shoulder and letting it settle, Leon replied while wiping soot sauce off the black goat's face with a rag taken from the restaurant. He's got someone looking out for him. He's much safer than us. Not to mention that those three sailors are just punching him. Even if Master Wild wanted, he'd come back lively even after being run over by a cruise ship. Oh? What is all that about? Without the resistance to the anomalous object provided by materialism, the princess was still the tavern waitress Agatha, and naturally couldn't understand what Leon was talking about. However, when she thought of Mr. Joseph's usual nonsense and ramblings, she didn't probe further. Instead, she worriedly suggested, Mr. Joseph, there's a police station just around the corner on the next street. Could you please go and report to them? I'm worried about the tavern. Nothing's going to happen to the tavern. After cleaning the sauce off the black goat, Leon tied it to his belt, then grabbed the princess's shoulders with both hands, speaking earnestly. Vi, Agatha, listen to me. Watching the princess's startled expression, Leon, who intended to help her escape, explained sincerely, what I'm about to tell you might sound unbelievable, but I can assure you, every word is true. You're not actually a tavern waitress, you're actually… Ha! Suddenly sensing an inexplicable danger, Leon's hair stood on end, and he jerked his head up, spotting a transparent thread, several times thicker than before, silently descending from the sky and coming straight for the back of his head. The Drama King had found him. Seeing the situation take a turn for the worse, Leon didn't use the Holy Spirit pendant to attack the transparent threads. Instead, he controlled his tangible spirit power to form a large hand, swiftly pushing himself horizontally away, narrowly avoiding the descending thread. But for someone possessing the power of the Level 2 goat, evading the abilities of the Drama King wasn't so simple. The line, thicker than a grown man's thigh, burst instantly, transforming into nearly 100 invisible threads that enveloped Leon, tightly binding every movable part of his body. Damn it! You dare ruin my play! Accompanied by an irate shout, as if a pause button had been pressed, the birds in the sky ceased flapping, the fresh and salty sea breeze halted, and the sound of waves lapping against the pier stopped abruptly, plunging the entire world into stillness. Shortly after, Master Wild, wearing a sharp double-breasted white suit and topped with a matching hat, hobbled over with a cane and stood angrily in front of Leon. This should be the embodiment of the Drama King's will, right? With his entire body tightly bound by threads, only Leon's eyes could move. He rolled them to fixate on the enraged master of drama. According to his analysis, the body of this Level 2 GOAT anomalous object was this small seaside town itself, or rather, the theatrical world it constructed. That's why the moment he entered, he grasped the intelligence related to the Drama King. To escape from the theatrical world it created, apart from relying on sheer strength, he could find the embodiment of the Drama King's will and try to shatter it, causing the world governed by its will to collapse prematurely. Initially, he planned to lure out the Drama King's will and use the mental impact ability of the Holy Spirit pendant to heavily damage it. After all, creating such a vast world must consume a lot, and the Drama King might not have enough strength left to withstand the pendant's impact. But now, after gauging the intensity of the Drama King's will, Leon shook his head and clucked his tongue, wisely abandoning the idea of ramming it once. This entity's will was overwhelmingly strong, as solid as a concrete wall. He really couldn't break through it, so he'd have to find another way. How can you still move? Seeing Leon adorned with hundreds of threads, yet able to shake his head and sigh, Master Wild was slightly surprised. Just as he was about to add more threads, he noticed Leon merely twisting a few times, breaking all the lines with which he exerted full control, leaving none intact. I can move because I can be exempt from your control. Also, although it seems unlikely, I'd like to try negotiating with you. Assessing his current methods and realizing he really had no means against the Drama King, Leon, freed from the threads, pointed to the princess and sincerely proposed, "If you let her and me leave and guarantee to release everyone trapped here after this play ends, I can help you."
No.
Before Leon could finish his proposal, the Drama King abruptly refused. He raised his cane, pointing at the princess, and sternly declared,